A breeze off the god's eye rippled the tall reeds, as dawn's first gold washed over Harrenhal's scorched towers. Mist clung to the ruined walls, softening stone melted by dragonfire into phantom silhouettes that shimmered in the growing light. Rhaegar Targaryen stood upon the bridge above the silent lake, silver-blonde hair unbound, polished ruby breastplate folded beneath one arm. All night he had watched the water, weighing a single decision against the might of kingdoms. And now, as larks trilled, he resolved that secrets had served his house ill enough. Today, the world would learn the name of his chosen queen, and no iron throne nor mad king would silence him. Lyanna Stark emerged between two blackened archways, shadow slipping from shadow. Frost-gray cloak wrapped her slender frame, yet the morning painted her cheeks with northern rose. She moved with a grace born of winter wolves, quiet but impossible to quell, boots hardly sounding against ancient flagstones. When Rhaegar turned, his violet eyes softened, as if the world's edges withdrew until only she remained. Wordless, he drew her gloved hand to his lips. She pressed her brow to his armored chest, and for a heartbeat the ruin felt whole. Beneath them the lake remembered dragons, but in its glassy surface the lovers saw only each other. By midday, the tourney grounds swelled anew, not with tilts or feasts, but with rumor. Campfires smoldered in rings around colored pavilions. Lords still dust-weary from joust and melee gathered under banners, flapping idly in a wind gone restless. Brandon Stark, sword strapped across his back, strode toward the dais at the field's center, leather greaves streaked with mud. He had sensed something amiss since dawn, ever since his sister's bed had lain untouched. Yet when horns sounded, instead of panic, there came a hush, for Prince Rhaegar ascended the steps, wearing a tabard quartered with Targaryen crimson and stark gray. His herald's voice rang, "Hearken, great lords of Westeros, to a proclamation of fire and frost." Lyanna mounted the platform beside him, her sable hair crowned by the same blue winter roses Rhaegar had bestowed 2 nights prior. Gasps rippled like thrown stones. Crown Prince and Wolfmaid clasped hands, steel met snow. Rhaegar spoke, voice clear, unhurried. "Before gods and men, in sight of Harrenhal's heart tree, and under the eyes of the Seven, Lyanna Stark and I were wed last moonturn. The vows were witnessed, the rites observed. She is my lawful wife and princess of Dragonstone." Murmurs surged to thunder, shock, delight, fury. Brandon's shout cut the air, half challenge, half disbelief, but Lyanna's steady gaze froze his words. In Old Town's gray halls, ravens would soon spread wings. Rhaegar's maester penned scroll after scroll, waxed dark with the 3-headed seal. One flew north across the neck to Winterfell. Another veered west for Casterly Rock. A third angled south to Sunspear, where Princess Elia lay abed in quiet convalescence. Each message bore the same courteous phrasing, yet could not soften the spearpoint truth. The line of succession bent now toward a northern bride. Within hours, banners began to furl or flutter according to unspoken calculations. Oaths sworn at sword point centuries past tugged at conscience. Storm clouds built along the horizon, though no steel yet shone. That evening, in Harrenhal's Godswood, where heart leaves bled crimson tears, Lyanna knelt beneath twisted boughs. The breeze carried scents of moss and lingering smoke. She whispered to the old gods of home, of Ned's shy smile, of Benjen's boyish laughter, of Brandon's stormy patience, and asked them to guide her down this wild southern path. Somewhere deep in the twilight forest, a lone direwolf howled, impossibly far from northern snows, yet the sound steadied her pulse. Rhaegar watched from the margin, palms open, as though her communion might cleanse his burdens too. She rose and they walked hand in hand back toward the hall, each step tracing a future only just begun. That same night in King's Landing, the Red Keep's Mad King sat sweating upon a throne of blades, nails scratching splinters from the armrest beneath his gauntlets. Ravens had arrived. Aerys Tattoo read and reread the words until ink blurred. His laughter peeled thin and brittle as old parchment. "My heir weds a wolf bitch without my leave," he crooned, tongue licking cracked lips, "and dreams himself savior of prophecy. Grand Maester Picel bowed low, smell of rosewater failing to mask unease, while Varys's whisper-soft sandals shifted near the base of the iron monstrosity. Aerys' voice dropped. "Send for Lord Tywin. Summon the small council, and fetch me wildfire." In candlelight his eyes burned greener than the alchemist's jars. Far to the south, in Sunspear's palace of pink marble, Elia Martell lay reclining on silk bolsters. Young Rhaenys curled asleep at her hip. The raven arrived at dusk, scroll ribboned with Targaryen red. Oberyn Martell, the Red Viper, unrolled it first. His dark eyes flicked across the lines, mouth tightening. He handed it silently to his sister. Elia traced the words as though they might vanish if she blinked. She closed her eyes, memories of gentle songs and promised crowns dissolving into salt air. Yet when she spoke, it was with soft dignity. I knew his heart wandered. Now it has found its road. Oberyn's jaw flexed. Dorne remembers its wounded, he said, voice thin as a blade. But Elia's hand rose. And Dorne protects its own. She gazed at her sleeping children, decision kindling behind grief's veil. At Storm's End, Robert Baratheon crushed a flagon of ale in his fist upon hearing the news. Foam spattered across the great hall's rushes. "She was promised to me," he roared. Black hair wild, the stag upon his chestplate snarling guilt threat. Jon Arryn caught the younger man's arm with seasoned steadiness, but Robert shook free. "Rhaegar steals my betrothed and dishonors my house. 7 hells, I'll rip his dragon banners down stone by bloody stone." Yet when the fury ebbed, he sat heavy, eyes distant, whispers of winter roses tangled with gales off the narrow sea. Rage alone could not sever the fine threads of tenderness now frayed to breaking. In Winterfell's great hall, Rickard Stark read the scroll by torchlight. The words were measured, respectful, yet they bore the shock of ice plunging into still water. He studied the seals, the careful hand of the maester, and then the signature. Rhaegar of House Targaryen, Prince of Dragonstone, firstborn of Aerys, the second, rightful heir to the Iron Throne. Rickard exhaled a plume, like midwinter breath. "Brandon," he murmured, knowing his eldest would ride south at dawn, whether commanded or not. "Eddard," he added, softer, for he sensed the quiet sun would bear the weight of all that followed. Yet in the hall's echo he heard Lyanna's laughter from summers past, and wondered whether any father truly knew the woman his daughter would become beyond his heart. As days turned, ravens stitched the sky with black threads of portent. Some carried blessings. House Tully responded with cautious congratulations. Maester Luwin's firm script citing affection for Lyanna since her fostering at Riverrun. Others carried veiled threats. Lord Tywin's reply bore no signature, only a golden lion stamped within blank parchment, the subtle menace of silence. From the Vale, Jon Arryn counseled calm, yet hinted at Stormland's unrest. The Reach waited, gauging sunlit orchards against Dragonfire's shadow. And along dusty roads, small folk whispered of a prophecy reborn, of a prince that was promised who would bind great houses by blood and flame. Rhaegar and Lyanna departed Harrenhal under a dawn softened by rain, escorted by a modest retinue of Kingsguard and Northmen, sworn to House Stark. They rode side by side beneath a shared canopy of wool-dyed half-crimson, half-gray. Along the King's Road villages emerged from mist. Children chased their procession, shouting that the prince had brought a winter lady to shine away the snows. Lyanna bent to toss silver stags among them. She met widows' curtsies with frank words and shy smiles. Rhaegar felt the realm begin to measure her not as abducted maiden, nor stolen bride, but as the wolf princess who rode unafraid at a dragon's flank. During quiet camps the pair spoke over maps and music. Rhaegar plucked his harp, chords falling through firelit night, each note tracing possibilities. Alliances forged, grievances soothed. Lyanna listened, eyes reflecting flame, counsels sharp as any master-at-arms. She urged that northern independence of spirit could aid, not hinder, the crown if respected. Rhaegar pondered. He envisioned assemblies where highborn women spoke as freely as men, where bastards found paths to honor, where prophecy served the living, rather than the living shackled prophecy. Yet each ambitious sketch met the looming shape of his father's madness. Only open defiance lay between dream and doom. When the company neared the Trident, Rhaegar paused at a willow-lined ford. Years hence the river would choke red with memory. But now water glimmered bright under summer skies. He dismounted, knelt, dipped his hands into the current, letting it slide cool across knuckles bruised by practice yard hours. Lyanna joined him, kneeling opposite so their reflections, pale dragon, dusky wolf, mingled upon ripples. "Here," she said, voice hushed. "I once raced my brothers across the stones." Rhaegar smiled. "And won, I imagine." She splashed him, laughter pealing. He retaliated, and for an instant they were children before crowns and swords. Yet downstream, eddies whispered of blood not yet spilled. In the Red Keep, small council convened beneath smokeless torches that cast tall shadows over polished marble. Lord Connington, hand clasped behind back, argued that the marriage could secure northern loyalty and quell persistent rumors of the prince's infatuation with prophecy. Lord Chelstead viewed it treason, an affront to Queen Elia, and an act taken without royal sanction. Varys cooed that the realm loved romance and might forgive boldness if serenaded properly. Pycelle advised letters of annulment, quoting Septon statutes. When Tywin Lannister arrived, golden lions threading his crimson cloak, he listened long before speaking. "The match is done," he said, voice flat. "Our concern is not vows but consequences. How will Dorne answer? How will Baratheon, whose temper matches his hammer?" None dared mention King Aerys was the greater storm. Deep within Maegor's holdfast, Aerys paced between flickering scones, fingernails black with dried blood where he had scratched at his flesh in restless angst. He muttered of betrayal and dragon spawn diluted by wolf's blood. "They would unmake my reign," he hissed. "They whisper I am unfit." When his Kingsguard captain, Sir Gerald Hightower, bowed to inquire whether to summon the prince for royal judgment, Aerys barked laughter. "Judgment? Nay, the little hero intends to supplant me. Let him parade his winter rose. I will greet them both when the time is ripe, with wildfire blooming beneath their feet." His grin glimmered green. That threat unseen, Rhaegar and Lyanna entered King's Landing, amid trumpet fanfare orchestrated by Connington to drown any hiss of dissent. Crowds filled the cobbled streets. Bakers balanced trays of sweetbread iced white and red, while pickpockets slithered through throngs thick with curiosity. Some shouted blessings, others spat. As the couple approached the Great Sept, Rhaegar dismounted and extended a hand to his bride. Lyanna took it, and together they climbed marble steps flecked with petals. Inside, High Septon welcomed them with grave courtesy, though sweat filmed his brow. They prayed beneath towering statues of the Seven, each silently bargaining their own hope. Rhaegar that the faith would legitimize what royal decree had yet to acknowledge, Lyanna that the old gods of North might forgive these southern idolatrous walls for harboring her vows. While incense curled above Septon chants, Rhaegar sent ravens to Dragonstone, instructing maesters to prepare chambers for the princess in northern style. Hearths large, furs plentiful, walls hung with tapestries of deerwolves under northern stars. He imagined their first night on ancestral seat, sea crashing below black cliffs, Dragonstone candles casting soft orange on Lyanna's wild hair, unbraided beneath night's hush. Yet he knew each tender picture must be earned through diplomacy sharper than Valyrian steel. Elias' reply arrived the next day. Her script was elegant, steady. "My lord husband," she wrote, "let no child of mine suffer for choices made beyond their nursery. I ask that you ensure their place remains secure, their mother honored, and Dorne respected. If these conditions are met, I shall withdraw to Sunspear in peace and raise our children beneath Martell spears." Rhaegar folded the parchment, forehead resting on joined fingertips. He sent answer promising every courtesy, and included gifts: a nursery of singers for Rhaenys, rare peppercakes for the infant Aegon, and letters pledging Martell's succession rights should his second union fail to bear sons. Across the Sea of Dorne, Aelia accepted with tears, her dignity intact though heart fissured. That same sunlit hour, Robert Baratheon rode north from Storm's End flanked by rows of mailed stormlords, hoofbeats drumming wrath into dust. Jon Arryn's pleas trailed unanswered behind him. Robert's hammer glinted. Yet by the time they reached the King's Road's midpoint, a company bearing the crowned stag of House Baratheon intercepted. Renly, barely old enough for armor, but carrying Jon Arryn's words, the Vale Council's patience. The realm stands at precipice. Robert stared at his shy younger brother's earnest face, then toward looming King's Landing spires. Sweat cooled. He dismissed half his host and turned aside to Crackclaw Point. Seeking allies among crabbers loyal more to coin than crown, his fury simmering to a steadier flame. Within the city, Rhaegar guided Lyanna through meandering red-roofed streets to the Street of Sisters, where stonemasons shaped dragon gargoyles. He showed her the dragon pit's broken dome, relic of might past. She traced claw marks on collapsed buttresses, awe and sorrow mingling. They walked the market of silk, where Dornish vendors sold gold thread shawls. Each corner layered her senses. Spices, dung, harp song, fish rot, gossip. Yet none unsettled her quite like the hush that fell when she passed. A hush not of disrespect but of uncertainty, for they did not yet know whether to fear or love the wolf who wed a dragon. That night, in Maegor's garden of fragrant moonbloom, Ned Stark arrived unannounced, cloak soaked by rain. Guards recognized Lord Eddard and let him pass to the Prince's Solar, where Lyanna sprang from her seat, eyes shining with unshed storm. Brother and sister embraced beneath carved dragons entwined in polished oak. Ned held her shoulders, searching her face for signs of regret. She answered with a grin stubborn as ice. Rhaegar watched their joy and felt an almost childlike hope, the kind he had known before Blackfire pretenders, before father's paranoia, before prophecy twisted childhood into burden. Over mulled wine they spoke until candles burned pools into the night, forging trust between North and Crown with every shared memory of winter laughter. Yet on the morrow, the small folk awoke to sheets of parchment, tacked to tavern doors. Pamphlets denouncing dragon adultery, claiming witch blood of Valyria had bewitched a maiden of the north. Anonymous but cleverly penned, they stoked rumor that Lyanna carried a bastard meant to usurp the throne. Rhaegar crumpled one in gloved hand. Jaw set. Aerys reported the leaflets issued from flea-bottom scribe shops bankrolled by gold of uncertain origin. Possibly Lannister, possibly Baratheon, possibly both. Rhaegar ordered the city watch to confiscate the flyers, but words once loosed traveled swifter than pigeons. In the Tower of the Hand, Tywin Lannister watched flames devour one such pamphlet in his hearth. He neither smiled nor scowled. Instead, he drafted a letter to Casterly Rock, instructing Cersei to delay her annual visit to court and remain in the West. To Jaime of the Kingsguard he wrote nothing. Their bond was a silence deeper than any raven could bridge. Tywin considered alliances as another man surveyed coin ledgers. If Targaryen heir abandoned Martell ties, perhaps Lyanna might yet sit a dragon's side, some future child of Rhaegar and Lyanna, dead of cradle fever. A remarriage warranted. He planned decades within breaths, as patient as gold, mined inch by inch. Meanwhile, in the smoky confines beneath the dragon pit, Rhaegar convened trusted knights. Sir Arthur Dayne, Sir Oswell Went, Sir Barristan Selmy. He spoke of an order beyond any previous, a coalition allied not merely by oaths to a single king, but to the realm itself. He named it the Fellowship of the Dawn, borrowing from ancient scrolls that foretold darkness lying north of the wall. They would train in combat, diplomacy, and lore, binding disparate houses to common purpose through shared service. Lyanna proposed including capable women, Maya Stone of the Vale, Ashara Dane, even Brienne of Tarth rumored to wield a sword better than most squires. Arthur Dane's silver gaze warmed. Steel recognizes steel, he said. On the 15th day since the proclamation, grand feast was held in the Red Keep's great hall. Tables groaned with roast swan, spiced honey duck, wheels of white cheese from Gulltown, sweet leaf salad for Dornish taste. Banners of Targaryen and Stark hung side by side. Yet the high table's emptiness spoke louder. King Aerys did not appear. Instead, the herald announced that his grace remained indisposed. Unease rippled through assembled nobles. Rhaegar rose, lyre in hand, and sang of jonquil and her fool, of a love so pure it turned a battlefield into a garden. Lyanna joined, voice low, twining harmony with his tenor. For a moment, suspicion melted, replaced by raw beauty crowning them in music's light. Lords and ladies blinked tears, unsuspected. Later, as candles guttered, Connington found Rhaegar upon a balcony overlooking the city's maze of lights. "You win hearts," the hand said, "but hearts alone cannot silence swords." Rhaegar nodded, fingers drumming balustrade. "Then we must wield both." He spoke of journeying north to Winterfell, to kneel at the heart tree and swear oaths alongside Lyanna before her gods. Connington urged caution. Southron lords might read absence as weakness. But Rhaegar believed the realm would judge sincerity in footfalls, not declarations. "The dragon must learn the wolf's winter," he said, "or freeze in loneliness." Deep in dungeons below the keep, wildfire surged within crystalline jars, lids clamped by chains. Alchemists, in robes of leaf green, chanted formulas older than dynasties. King Aerys paced among them, sparks of madness flickering like embers in wind. He envisioned balefire torrents down King's Landing's narrow streets, thought to birth anew a city free of traitors. But even his mania recognized timing. One does not ignite a pyre until the sacrificial stag and wolf stand helpless among the tinder. On a crisp dawn, Lyanna visited the training grounds where young squires clashed wooden swords. She donned boiled leather, hair braided tight, and sparred against Sir Barristan. Wooden blades thudded. Dust rose. Courtiers watched mouths agape as she pivoted, feinted, struck. Sweat gleamed. Barristan laughed, conceding point. "You've spirit," he said. She grinned. Rumor of the Wolf Princess's prowess spread faster than any slander, and small folk soon told tales of a northern lady who fought beside the prince rather than hiding behind walls. That evening, Ned prepared to depart for River Run to wed Catelyn Tully, a betrothal overshadowed yet not extinguished by his sister's union. In Lyanna's chambers they embraced once more. "Send word, little brother," she whispered. "When snows fall and white winds blow, the lone wolf dies but the pack survives." Ned held her a moment longer, knuckles white at her cloak. Rhaegar entered quietly. The brothers-in-law shared a nod heavy with unspoken promises. Ned departed at dawn, riding into mist, taking memories of moonlit laughter, and carrying the seed of cautious faith that perhaps winter's chill might yet temper dragonfire, rather than extinguish it. In the Reach, Mace Tyrell convened banners, uncertain whether to pledge or weigh. His mother Olenna, sharp as frost, remarked that a wolf prince would need grain to feed northern levies marching south if war came. Better to keep barns shut until prophet clarified. She dispatched ravens both red and gray, offering congratulation and caution in equal measure. A subtle weave only she and the Maiden of the Seven could unravel. As harvest deepened, Rhaegar met frequently with Varys in candlelit passages. The spider reported whispers of sellswords amassing in Lys, funded by partners unknown. He spoke of Taroshi captains willing to ferry men to Storm's End should coin ring true, and he offered illusions. Minor lords bribed to riot on command, scrolls forged to implicate riverlords in plots. Rhaegar listened, face grave. He commanded no assassinations, nor lies. Instead he directed Varys to gather stories of small folk hardship, poor harvests, septons taxed, orphans unprotected. If he would win this realm, he must mend its true wounds rather than cauterize old ones. One moon later, King Aerys summoned the court at midnight. Torches guttered behind stained glass, painting thronging dragons of shifting hue. Aerys emerged in blackened crown, nails bleeding from scratches along his neck. "I name Rhaegar traitor to the crown," he declared, spittle flying, "for entering bigamy and conspiring to usurp. I name Lyanna Stark his accomplice. Let their heads adorn the walls as example." Gasps rose, but Sir Jaime Lannister, white cloak bright, stepped forward. "Your Grace, there can be no treason where your signature grants annulment and sanction." He held aloft parchment bearing royal seal, Aerys' own, secured days earlier under the king's sedation by Grandmaster Pycelle. For one breath, the hall froze. Aerys blinking at his own sigil, as though it bit him. Then he shrieked, lunging. But geriatric Picel presented duplicated scrolls to assembled lords. Legality pinned madness, as sword pins moth. Yet behind the king's eyes wildfire still burned. Rhaegar and Lyanna, forewarned by Connington, awaited at Dragonstone. Cliff-top winds tore at cloaks as black waves hammered volcanic rock. Lyanna stared across restless sea. "I feel we stand upon an edge," she murmured. Rhaegar wrapped arms round her. "Edges can be bridges, my love, if we build true." They planned a northern progress, first Winterfell, then Barrowlands, teaching their yet unborn heirs the Song of Snow. Rhaegar's harp lay nearby. He plucked a string, soft, wistful. Far below, dragons that once ruled flame slept only in legend. Yet, the song that drifted into the night seemed to promise their echo would rise again, not in fire but in harmony. In Sunspear, Elia received tidings of Aerys' failed condemnation. She smiled, thin but genuine. "Let the Mad King claw his own walls," she told Doran atop the water gardens. "Better the realm follow reason than fear." Doran inclined his head. "Yet reason armed, sister. We shall ready our spears, not for vengeance, but for the children." Water trickled through marble runnels beneath orange trees. Peace there tasted fragile, sun ripened yet easily bruised. Back in King's Landing, Tywin resigned his hand, handing the chain of office to Jon Connington, citing ill health but meaning insult. He departed with Lannister host before dawn, crimson cloaks rippling like tongues of warning. The capital's markets felt the vacuum. Gold wagons rolled west. Craftsmen muttered, merchants worried interest rates. Rhaegar's allies scrambled to steady coin flows, but specter of Lannister defiance haunted every ledger. On the wall of ice far to the north, Lord Commander Corgyle received a raven bearing news of the royal marriage. Brothers in black chuckled that perhaps the old gods had sent a wolf south to tame dragons. Yet one ranger, lean and solemn, whispered that tales of promised princes often foretold winters dark beyond reckoning. He turned eyes to star-spun sky, noting a red comet's faint smear near the sword of the morning. Omens meant little to hungry men, but he prayed nonetheless to strangers both old and new. Autumn's first true frost kissed Dragonstone battlements when a second surprise arrived. Queen Rhaella herself, cloaked, weary, spirited away from King's Landing by knights, loyal to Rhaegar. She embraced her son near the carved dragons of the sea gate, eyes shining with both pride and terror. "Your father raves," she warned, "speaks of fire under the city." Rhaegar guided her to warmth, heart sinking. The Fellowship of the Dawn accelerated drills. Ravens sped to key lords, begging patience while promising reform. But whispers said Robert rallied again, forging pacts with Hoster Tully and Jon Arryn. Aerys' paranoia thus found new mirrors, each reflecting sharper threat. Lyanna, heavy in thought, walked Dragonstone's basalt beach, where obsidian shards glittered under gray sky. She knelt, lifted a black glass arrowhead, felt its edge. Memory of old Nan's tale stirred. The first long night, children of the forest gifting dragonglass to brave men. She pocketed the shard, resolved to send crates north for her brother Benjen at the wall. If ghosts stirred, let them meet steel, fire, and stone made to slay darkness itself. On a crisp dawn, the couple sailed for White Harbor. Seagulls wheeled, spray salted hair. Northern ships escorted them, proud masts bearing direwolves, mermen. Even the 3 trees of House Manderly intertwined with dragon sigils newly embroidered. White Harbor greeted them with clamshell trumpets, Lord Wyman kneeling, belly-brushing wharfboards. Feasts followed, honeyed salmon, hot spiced wine, ballads of stark kings older than the Andals. Lyanna danced beneath lanterns with sailors coarse of hand, but tender of heart. And when she laughed, the harbor seemed brighter than lighthouse flame. Even so, through revelry Ned's raven arrived at midnight. Robert Baratheon had wed Cersei Lannister in secret at Storm's End, binding stag and lion in alliance, simmering with resentment. War drums, muffled but unmistakable, thrummed in the distance. Rhaegar closed his eyes, inhaled cold sea, then summoned parchment. He wrote to Robert with measured candor. offering meeting under faith banners, swearing on Seven and old gods alike to guarantee Robert's grievances heard. He wrote to Cersei, invoking their shared childhood at court, begging she temper her new husband's wrath. Quills scratched into dawn. Snow fell upon Winterfell's towers as Rhaegar crossed the arching stone bridge over its hot springs. Vapors rising like apparitions. Wolves howled, greeting from within kennels. Lyanna ran to them, greeted Grey Wind's grandsire with unabashed joy. Rickard Stark stood at the gate, in dark fur, eyes pale and unreadable. Rhaegar dismounted, removed sword, and knelt before Lord of Winter. Cloaks spread upon snow. Silence stretched, broken only by iron gates, groaning shut behind. Rickard looked to daughter, saw the certainty in her gaze, and at last extended a hand. "Rise, Prince." That one syllable carried seasons of doubt melting into reluctant trust. In the Godswood, beneath the heart tree, Rhaegar pressed palm to red bark, sap sticky like blood. He whispered Valyrian hymns, then switched to halting first tongue taught by Lyanna during long rides. Snowflakes dusted hair, breath wreathen. The old god said nothing, but the stillness returned felt like assent. When they left the grove hand in hand, Winterfell's courtyard erupted in cheers steeled by ale. For the first time, Rhaegar dared believe union might heal rifts older than conquest. Yet at that same hour in the Red Keep, wildfire stores doubled. King Aerys signed new orders for pyromancers to infuse sewers beneath Flea Bottom. He muttered that when traitors marched, the city would bloom green, cleansing disease with holy flame. Jaime Lannister paced the throne room aisle, white cloak swishing, heart pounding harder than on any field. He watched his king's hands shake, saw madness pooling like acid behind pupils. Duty warred with conscience, and his sword felt heavier than Valyrian steel. Winter eased into a hush of drifts. Rhaegar lingered in the north, learning the taste of crisp air unmarred by ash. He rode with Benjen across Wolfswood, hunted elk, marveled at aurora curtains of green dancing above frost-clad pines. Lyanna taught him to skate on mirrored lakes. He fell often, laughing, robes soaked but spirit light. In Mead Hall evenings they sang not of doom, but of hearth, of children building snow forts, of spring buds bursting crimson like dragon scales. But letters arrived daily, Connington warning that Robert gathered 40,000 under his stag banners, while Tywin moved lions across the Golden Tooth. Storm and Stormbreaker converged. Rhaegar knew time dwindled. On New Year's morn beneath Winterfell's stars, he cradled Lyanna near crackling hearth. "I would give you only peace," he whispered. She smiled, fierce. "Wolves do not fear storms. Let us weather this together." She placed his palm upon her belly. There, a life quickened, promise beating like tiny wings. Tears shone unshed in his eyes. "For child and realm," he vowed. When they departed Winterfell, the first thaw had begun. Icicles dripped from ramparts, snowmelt carved rivulets. Ned accompanied them south, sworn brothers in purpose. As their column snaked past Moat Caelin's reptilian ruins, ravens shadowed overhead bearing fresh tidings. Robert had issued challenge to Rhaegar by name, demanding single combat to reclaim honor and betroth. Yet the letter arrived not from Storm's End, but from a camp near the Mander, where Baratheon and Lannister swords drilled side by side. War breathed warm upon their necks. At nightfall, as campfires flickered along the neck, Lyanna lay awake listening to crickets newly woken by early spring. Rhaegar traced constellations above, thoughts adrift. He pictured meeting Robert, not upon battlefield, but in some meadow where boys once wrestled for sport. He imagined admitting guilt for stealing love, yet refusing shame for following heart, and offering brotherhood in new age. He fell asleep dreaming of anvil echoes forging a realm where direwolves roamed kings' forests without threat, where dragons flew not for conquest, but for song. Yet dawn shattered such visions. Scouts rode in. King Aerys had attempted to arrest Jon Arryn, now fled the capital with Sirs Eddard and Hoster's daughter Catelyn as guests. The Mad King demanded their heads. City Watch rushed to barricades. Small folk packed bundles, rumor of wildfire beneath their feet spreading like plague. Rhaegar halted march, eyes closed. If we ride to King's Landing, Ned reasoned, we might contain him. But Connington's Raven insisted the city was tinder-ready. One spark of confrontation would unleash dragonfire unnatural. Rhaegar chose detour to Riverrun to forge last alliances and perhaps intercept Robert before swords rang. On Riverrun's red walls, banners of trout and direwolf now flew entwined with three-headed dragon. Lord Hoster greeted party with wary courtesy. Feasts followed: roasted river boar, herb-stuffed trout, blackcurrant tarts still warm. But council overshadowed revelry. Robb minded baby steps near his mother-to-be Catelyn, while lords plotted echoing war drums. Rhaegar addressed them. "We stand on cusp of ruin wrought by fear. I ask you to trust in reason's shield." Some nodded. Others muttered that Robert's hammer would not consult parchment. It was there, along the banks of tumbling Red Ford, that a lone messenger bearing Baratheon livery approached under parley flag. He delivered a sealed parchment smelling of ale and sweat. Rhaegar broke the wax. Robert proposed a meeting within 7 days at Stony Sept, each to bring 10 sworn men to decide matters between them. Lyanna read over husband's shoulder, brow furrowed. Ned advised caution. Stony Sept lay too near Lannister supply lines, yet opportunity beckoned. One heart-to-heart could stay rivers of blood. Rhaegar agreed. He penned reply accepting the duel of words, not swords, and named the High Septon and Father Superior of the Poor Fellows as witnesses. The messenger galloped away. For 6 nights, Rhaegar honed speeches, balancing contrition and conviction. Lyanna sparred likewise, phrasing to remind Robert of childhood promises, of laughter after hunts, of a girl who once said yes to a boy when moonlight silvered pools in Winterfell's Godswood. On the eve of departure to Stony Sept, camp buzzed with anxious hope. Yet miles away inside Red Keep's black antechambers, King Aerys set final caches of wildfire, trusting no pyromancer but himself. He instructed Jaime to guard the royal family in secret vault should traitors storm gates. Jaime's mouth dried. Vaults also contained fuses. The White Knight bowed, heart-hammering drums of destiny. Green shadows danced upon armor. As morning mist lifted from Riverrun's riverbanks, Rhaegar mounted his pale stallion Glint, cloak of black and red rippling. Lyanna rode a dapple gray gifted by Wyman Manderly. Ned flanked her, wolf cloak billowing. 10 chosen knights completed escort. Dane, Selmy, Hightower among them. South they traveled, past fields sprouting chartreuse shoots, past villages where farmers paused from plow to gape at dragon wolf procession. They reached Stony Sept on the 7th day. Town square bustled. Stone cottages with slate roofs, market stalls draped in brown canvas, air rich with horse and spiced stews. Atop sloping hill, sept of humble whitewashed timber, awaited. Robert arrived within the hour, astride a warhorse black as midnight, hammer across back, Lannister outriders at mid-distance, though only 10 camp followers approached. Cersei's golden hair flowed beneath hood. Jaime rode at her side, though vow forbade bloodshed. Thunderclouds prowled horizon. Within the sept, candles flickered. High Septon raised hands, voice tremulous, blessing meeting beneath Seven's gaze. Rhaegar stepped forward, palms empty. Lyanna remained at pew's end, gray eyes locked on Robert's face. The Stormlord studied her, pain, longing, betrayal warring across features grown harder than she remembered. Rhaegar began to speak. The doors burst inward. A squire in Lannister livery stumbled, arrow in spine, blood dark on doublet. Scouts sighted crown host, 10,000, banners of green flame. He gasped before collapse. Chaos exploded. Jaime seized sister's arm. Robert's hammer flew to hand. Rhaegar grabbed Lyanna, voice calm amid roar. "To horse!" Outside, dust columns rose. Aerys' loyalist vanguard, wildfire emblem blazing Gatai. Someone had betrayed meeting, setting trap of pyre and sword. Rhaegar's small guard formed shield wall as civilians ran screaming. Bells told warning. Robert charged into square, bellowing orders, his hammer wrecking first breastplate to bar path. Ned drew ice, great sword flashing. Dane's dawn-white blade whirled starfire. Green-flamed arrows arced overhead, some bursting into unnatural emerald blaze where they struck thatch. Lyanna refused retreat. She seized bow, loosed shaft after shaft, felling pikemen advancing on fleeing children. Rhaegar shouted for her to fall back, but she shook head, hair flying. Smoke thickened, town igniting. Hightower's white cloak smoldered as he hauled injured woman from burning doorway. Amid crackle of timber and screams, a spark touched hidden wildfire store. Explosion rocked ground, green hellflower blooming skyward. Shockwave flung horses, shattered sept windows. Rhaegar shielded Lyanna beneath collapsed beam, wood scorching his shoulders. When firestorm subsided, Stony Sept lay half in ruins, but lines between friend and foe blurred, each man fighting flames more than rivals. Through choking haze, Rhaegar saw Robert kneeling beside wounded peasant, pressing cloth to torn leg. He glimpsed Lannister knight guiding villagers to river. Mad King's vanguard hesitated, wildfire consuming own ranks as wind changed. Dragonstone Prince stood, voice like bronze horn. Save the people! Allies and adversaries alike obeyed because no other command remained sane. Night enveloped, embers glowed. Survivors huddled in fields, while healers worked under makeshift pavilions. Wolves and stags, lions and dragons formed uneasy circle around shared misery. Rhaegar approached Robert across charred earth. He offered water skin. Robert drank, eyes rimmed red from smoke and loss. "We were fools," Robert rasped. Rhaegar nodded. "But not dead fools." They spoke until stars wheeled overhead, forging ember glow accord. To march together upon King's Landing, not as conquerors, but as liberators, to stay Aerys' hand before he burned realm to bone. Lyanna listened, heart pounding with both dread and hope. The war had begun despite every oath, yet perhaps grief might birth alliance stronger than rage. Stony Sept smoldered behind her, a grave of innocence and catalyst of change. Fires dimmed to coals, casting deep shadows. And within those shadows destinies shifted like molten steel cooling into unexpected shape. Far away, King's Landing's skyline gleamed atop hills, wildfire buried beneath, waiting. And so, beneath a wounded moon over blackened fields, two former rivals clasped wrists in silent oath. Direwolf watching, lion growling low, while a weary world turned toward uncertain dawn. Gale, Nice Corridor. Ash still drifted like ghostly snow over the ravaged square of Stony Sept when dawn seeped beneath a bruised horizon. Fires smoldered in blackened shells of cottages, and a low wind funneled through ruined lanes, carrying the sour tang of burned barley and singed flesh. Rhaegar Targaryen picked his way through the rubble with measured tread. Silver hair matted by soot, violet eyes heavy with the night's horrors yet clear with new conviction. Around him knights of every banner labored side by side. Sir Barristan directing bucket chains from a half-collapsed well. Sir Jaime hacking fallen beams to free a trapped mason. Sir Arthur Dane standing sentinel at a makeshift infirmary, where healers bound wounds beneath canvas dyed green by wildfire smoke. In places the char of alchemy still hissed, spitting emerald sparks when touched by water. But men kept hauling, shoveling, dousing, driven by the shared knowledge that the king's madness had slaughtered his own loyalists as readily as foes. Robert Baratheon emerged from a ruined tavern, shoulders hunched under ash-slick mail, great warhammer slung across his back like an anvil. He carried two children, one beneath each arm, both coughing but alive. A woman rushed from the crowd, skirts scorched, tears cutting pale tracks down soot-black cheeks. Robert set the little ones into her trembling embrace. She fell at his feet, but the Storm Lord only hauled her upright and pressed a loaf of hard bread into her hands. No words passed, only a nod from man to mother. Yet something brittle eased inside the watching crowd. Grievances for stolen betrothals and shattered futures still festered, but in that gray dawn, many saw two princes, one stag, one dragon, working shoulder to shoulder, and hope stirred like a weak flame teased by breath. Toward noon, A ramshackle council gathered beneath a scorched willow, whose bark still oozed green tears of burned sap. Rhaegar, Robert, Eddard Stark, Jon Connington, Arthur Dayne, and Jaime Lannister formed a ring over a map spread on a door, pried from its hinges. The door's paint had blistered into strange shapes, as though the gods themselves annotated their strategy in living color. Rhaegar traced a charred finger along the King's Road. "We ride at sunrise," he said. "But, before we lay siege, we must ensure every wildfire cache is known. If Aerys ignites even one, the city will burn faster than Harrenhal's towers melted beneath Balerion." "Now," Jaime's jaw flexed. "I know the commanding pyromancers. I can find the ledgers, the vault keys." His green-gold gaze flicked to Rhaegar, testing trust like a blade's edge. "But I cannot walk the city wearing white if my father's banners stand across the field. Tywin may yet seize the gates the instant the city falters." Connington spat a fleck of ash. "Better a lion at the gate than a dragon within," he said, but Robert shook his head. "No, Tywin plays coin and consequence. He will not commit until certain of victory. We give him certainty." Robert jabbed a gauntlet against the door. "When our combined host stands before the mud gate, Lannister will choose the winning side, and woe to any man who breaks with us after the bells ring surrender." Eddard spoke then, voice low but iron. "Bells cannot toll if the septs lie buried under green fire. Jaime's route matters. So do the sewers. My brother Benjen writes that the Night's Watch once mapped every vault of King's Landing, when Stark kings still ruled. Those records may rest in the crypts of Winterfell." Rhaegar met Ned's eyes. "Send your fastest riders. If those scrolls exist, we need them before we reach the city. Meanwhile, the Fellowship will infiltrate in 3 pairs. Dane and Selmy through the eastern postern. Lyanna and I by the river gate. Jaime and Connington under cloak of gold and white. We strike the alchemists' guild hall first, seize their stocks, then open the gates from within." Robert's grin flashed savage under soot. "While you dance with jars, I'll keep the Mad King busy smashing whatever army still stands before the walls." Above them, clouds thickened into an iron lid, yet shafts of late sun lanced through ragged seams, lighting patches of blood-streaked mud until they gleamed like rubies. Lyanna approached the council, cloak fluttering raggedly. Her face was streaked with grime, but fierce light burned in her gray eyes. She carried the obsidian arrowhead she had taken from Dragonstone, strung on a leather cord now looped around her throat. Rhaegar raised a questioning brow. "For luck," she said simply, "and to remind us that fire alone never wins a war. Sometimes stone does." She laid a hand atop the map, fingers brushing Robert's. The big man blinked, jaw working. She offered a small nod, neither apology nor forgiveness, but acknowledgement of shared purpose. Robert answered with a grunt and averted gaze, but the tension that had coiled his shoulders eased a notch. Night fell hard. Campfires burned low to conserve wood. Ashes from the ruined town choked the air so thick the half-moon glowed sickly green above. Rhaegar walked the perimeter, listening to the hushed conversations of Riverland levies and Northmen tents pitched beside Dornish pavilions. Old hatreds muttered, yet none kindled. Exhaustion tamped rancor like snow upon embers. He paused outside the healer's enclosure to watch Lyanna bend over a fevered sellsword. She sponged his brow, murmuring words in the soft dialect of the Wolfswood. The man's eyes fluttered open. He whispered thanks. Rhaegar's chest tightened with mingled pride and dread. For every life she soothed now, the war would claim 10 if he misstepped. When she emerged, he offered his arm. They walked beyond the circle of fires to a small bluff overlooking the blackwater silver ribbon of the Mander. Below, tents spread like dim stars. Farther off, sparks marked Robert's command camp where laughter occasionally boomed across the stillness. Rhaegar drew Lyanna against him. Her cold fingers burrowed beneath his cloak. Between them her belly began to round, subtle but unmistakable. He rested a gloved palm upon it, feeling the faintest flutter. Life insisting upon itself even as kingdoms threatened to crumble. "I will not let our child be born to ash," he said. "You cannot shape all winds," she murmured. But you can anchor what matters. She lifted the obsidian pendant between them. We are each stone in flame. Balance them, and the storm will break around us. He kissed her forehead, tasting salt and smoke, and for a moment the world shrank to two hearts ticking in a single beat. At sunrise, mist smoked off the river. Trumpets blared, drums rattled, battered banners unfurled. Direwolf silver gray, crowned stag black on gold, dragon three-headed red on black. A ragged cheer rolled down the column as word spread. Lord Hoster's reserves had arrived overnight, blue and red trout banners swelling the allied host to nearly 60,000. Knights mounted, infantry shouldered spears. Oxen strained against wagon chains, laden with provisions. Priests of the Seven blessed the march, while silent maesters of the citadel took meticulous account of wounds and rations. The army funneled south, boots slogging through stinking puddles of wildfire-tainted rainwater. Scouts returned with news. The king's surviving field host under Lord Carleton Chelsted had retreated toward King's Landing after losing half its strength to friendly emerald fire. Deserters bled from its edges like water from a cracked cask, deserting in droves under cover of night. Rhaegar sent mounted outriders to offer clemency to every man who abandoned Aerys before the city walls. Thousands accepted, swelling his ranks. Connington kept them apart from veteran units until loyalty proved. 4 days the host marched. On the second, riders from the Vale overtook them. Bronze falcon banners snapping above 2,000 Arryn spears led by Lord Jon himself. Jon, lean and gray, dismounted before Rhaegar and Robert, knelt and pledged House Arryn to the king's true heir and the peace of realm. His falcon's cry joined the roar as soldiers cheered, though Robert muttered about Arryn tardiness. Ned cuffed his arm and reminded him none could fly swifter than a falcon who brought no treachery. On the third day, a rider from Highgarden arrived bearing silk and scented parchment. Lord Mace Tyrell offered his neutrality, citing conflict of counsel between Maester Gorman and Lady Olenna. The parchment smelled of roses, but the words pricked like thorns. Tyrell would keep his legions home until outcome certain. Robert spat into a hedge and called the Reach a garden of gelded peacocks. Yet Rhaegar only folded the letter neatly and tucked it into his breastplate. The Queen of Thorns waits to see which way the wind blows, he said. Let us be the wind. On the fourth day, as spires of King's Landing shimmered hazy on the southern horizon, the column halted at dusk beside a meadow strewn with purple vetch and pale daisies. Supply wagons formed a hasty circle, kettles clanged, banners dipped. Rhaegar summoned his infiltration teams. By torchlight he distributed charcoal sketches of sewer grates, postern doors, alchemist cellars, copied from memory, and Benjen Stark's couriered parchments. Jaime explained fuse mechanisms, thin clay pots linked by ropes soaked in volatile oils. Sever the ropes, or douse them with river water, and the chain would fail. Dane and Selmy studied every detail, minds weighing ounces of powder against heartbeats of time. Connington strapped a bundle of thin iron spikes across his back, tools to jam gears in the great bronze doors of the Guildhall furnace, so no spark could be drawn. Lyanna buckled black brigandine over her swelling stomach. Rhaegar's protest stalled when she met his gaze with frigid certainty. Our child will know their mother fought for their first breath, she said. He relented, but assigned Arthur Dane to her shadow with orders to shield her, as dawn shielded night. In the black hours before sunrise, 6 riders detached from the camp under flags of truce, winding down a side road toward the city. Jaime led them, white cloak disguised beneath dun cloak. By his side rode an aging maester of no note, one Grand Maester Benefer's former assistant, now in Connington's hire, and 3 guards. The gate captain, rank with fear after reports of the allied host, allowed them through with scant inspection, believing the story of urgent medical supplies for the Red Keep. Once inside, Jaime dismissed escorts at a safe stable and strode toward the Alchemist Guild alone, hood thrown back to reveal Kingsguard gold. No guard barred his path. Pyromancers reverenced the valiant knight, rumored to revere Wildfire's beauty almost as much as the Mad King. They ushered him into the main hall, glittering with green-tinged crystal. Jaime's smile hid a blade within his sleeve. Beyond the city walls, dawn-tinted clouds bruised mauve. Riders galloped across front ranks bearing orders. Formed by banners. The allied host deployed in 3 wedges, Robert commanding left with Stormlanders, Jon Arryn the right with River Lords and Vale Knights, Rhaegar the center flanked by Eddard's Northmen and Connington's loyal Crownlanders. Catapults groaned into position, trenches were dug for latrines, pavilions pitched in measured rows. Ziga towers still lay as timbers strapped on wagons, but engineers eyed the tall walls and calculated daydreams of conquest. Small folk flocked to the battlements, peering down at the vast encampment. Some wept to see direwolf and dragon together. Others hurled rotten fruit. From narrow alleys rumors spread. The prince returned to overthrow his father. The stag came to claim the wolf maid. Lannisters would sack the city either way. Mummers spun songs faster than potters cast cups. Inside the Red Keep, King Aerys watched from a balcony, fingers drumming gouges into railstone. Spittle flecked his beard. "Traitors all," he hissed. "They shall taste the dragon's wrath." He swung toward a pyromancer trembling behind him. "Are the city drains primed?" The robed man stuttered assent. "Good. Then light no fuses until I command. Let them break themselves beneath our gates like waves, and when the tide retreats, the streets will run green." His laughter grated like shards. Queen Rhaegar knelt in prayer in her bedchamber, turned refuge, cradling a candle. Princess Elia's children slept there too, spirited from Dragonstone by loyal knights to reunite mother and babes. Elia herself had ridden north with Oberyn to rally Dorne. An unexpected twist, yet Rhaegar judged embers of alliance might still kindle if Elia fought for realm rather than crown. Rhaegar's whispered supplications floated like dust motes. To the Seven for mercy, to the mother for her grandson in her womb, though no one but midwife knew she still carried. For Aerys offered no safety, only fire, and her final hope lay in Sun's distant camp. When twilight bled red across siege lines, Rhaegar watched from a hillock while Robert tested trebuchets. Boulders arced high, crashing short of walls, mere warnings. Rhaegar's mind dwelled not on stone, but on Jaime's silent mission. Hours ticked, each a drumbeat of tension. Lyanna appeared beside him, cloak whipping. She carried a wineskin but merely wet her lips. "My brother will send a signal," he said, studying the city for a sign. A single column of white smoke from the hill of Rhaenys. "That means the wildfire stores are secure. And if green rises..." Her voice barely roughened the wind. He exhaled. "If green rises, we storm at once, break the city or die trying." Night deepened. Torches flickered along palisade trenches. The allied command tent thrummed with low conversation. Jon Arryn drafting letters to Tyrell and Greyjoy. Connington whispering with Varys' latest spider-bearing secrets. Benjen Stark bent over sewer maps with Maester Luwin. Robert drank half a cask, then tossed it aside, and strode out to sit alone, beneath a banner pole where the crowned stag snapped overhead. Ned found him there, offered a fresh skin of water. They spoke quietly until Robert's shoulders sagged and he pressed forearm to eyes. When he rose, his voice carried steady across the camp. He ordered double watches, dry powder kept under canvas, all cooks to half rations until streets opened. Past midnight, a hush fell, broken only by hoarse nickers and distant gulls. Somewhere inside those walls, Jaime Lannister felt every second of that silence. He stood in a long corridor lined with crystalline jars of wildfire, each glowing faintly, eerily beautiful, casting emerald light upon his burnished armor. Beside him, Connington crouched by the central fuse lines, steady hands cutting the ropes one by one, before soaking ends in a bucket carried from the black water. Sweat slicked Connington's shaven skull. Jaime's heart hammered like a kettle drum. At last Connington rose. "The guild hall is a toothless dragon," he whispered. Jaime nodded once, then moved deeper into the complex, seeking the master ledger. He found it in a chamber hung with tapestries of Valyrian dragons devouring armies. The ledger lay on a lectern, chained. He sliced the chain with Valyrian steel, Lannister forged but deadly sharp, then flipped pages, scanning column after column listing cache locations. Under Baelor's Sept, beneath the Dragon Pit, in the tunnels below Flea Bottom, in hidden vaults beneath the Iron Throne itself. He ripped the page free, shoved it inside his cloak. Then footsteps approached. One of the guild's masters, face hidden within hood. Jaime seized him, slammed him against a crystal jar so hard the glass cracked and green ooze bubbled at the fracture. The pyromancer squealed. Jaime pressed blade to throat and whispered, "Tell the king his secrets belong to the knight who keeps them." He left the man sobbing among volatile shadows. Outside, Connington had struck the Guildhall's bell. Once, twice, thrice, the agreed signal. Above the city, a puff of pale smoke bloomed as stables near the Hill of Rainies unexpectedly caught. Soldiers on the walls paid little heed, but Rhaegar, watching from his hillock, saw it and closed his fist around the hilt of his blade. "White," he breathed. Relief flowed like warm mead down his spine. He signaled trumpet. Across the camps men rose, cuirasses clinking. Ziga would wait. Parley would come first. At dawn Rhaegar rode alone to the mud gate, with only a white silk pennant bound about his spear. No colors of dragon or wolf. Archers lined the battlement. Arrowheads glittered. Captain Mandon Moore of the City Watch raised a hand, uncertain. Rhaegar removed helm, lifted face to golden sunrise. "Open the gate," he called, voice ringing clear. "I am Rhaegar Targaryen, Prince of Dragonstone and lawful heir to the Iron Throne. I come to treat with the Council of King's Landing." Murmurs cascaded from the walls. Behind, a small wooden door creaked, and Rhaegar guided his horse through. He entered the fish-reeked forecourt, flanked only by 2 watch sergeants. The streets seemed deserted, but behind, shuttered windows' eyes watched, breaths held. Rhaegar dismounted before the gatehouse keep, handed reins to a gawking boy no older than 12. He stroked the horse's muzzle. "See her watered and fed," he said, pressing a silver stag into the boy's palm. Then he strode up steps where Master of Coin Lord Belgrave awaited trembling, flanked by 2 gold cloaks, who looked uncertain which way to point their spears. "Your Highness," Belgrave stammered. "The king, his grace, is indisposed." "You will convene the small council this hour," Rhaegar said. "Summon Pycelle, Varys Chelsted and Lord Rossart of the Alchemists. Tell them the realm balances on a single breath. Choose wisely how you exhale." Belgrave bobbed and scurried away. Within an hour, the council met in the Tower of the Hand. Rhaegar entered last. Sword unbelted, but voice sharp as dragon steel. Pycelle quavered platitudes of loyalty, his chains rattling. Chelsted glowered, half his beard singed from Stony Sept. Rossart wore robes stained with soot and wild fear, having discovered his guild robbed of fuses. Varys alone smiled, eyes soft. Rhaegar spread the torn ledger pages on the table. "These caches line every hollow bone of this city. They are now under my command. If his grace attempts to light so much as a candle, green hell will swallow the Red Keep first." He let the threat sink deep. Eyes widened. "Remove the alchemists from the city," he continued. "Distribute grain from the royal granaries to the poor this evening. Issue proclamation of ceasefire. And order the gold cloaks to stand down when our host enters at sunrise. Do this and the dynasty endures. My father abdicates. I ascend peacefully, and King's Landing sees no sack." Chelsted spat. "Abdication?" Treason again wears silken gloves. Rhaegar lifted a hand. "Lord Chelsted, you were loyal in intent, but your army now withers outside these gates. Choose loyalty to the crown that can yet feed your men." Chelsted's jaw clenched. Slowly, he bowed. Rossart's lip trembled. "The king will flense us with flame if we obey." Rhaegar stepped close, voice dropping. "The king cannot burn what I now control. I have cut his talons." He held Rossart's gaze until the pyromancer's shoulders slumped. Pycelle drafted the orders with quill scratching like scurrying mice. Varys leaned near. "You have taken the city without blood, my prince. Yet what of the lion who prowls beyond the wall?" Rhaegar met the eunuch's gaze. "Tywin will arrive to find gates open and hosts within. He may join or slink home. If he chooses violence, we will meet it with steel and unity." "Nan?" Word flew on swift feet. By dusk, gold cloaks removed alchemists from their vaults at sword point, escorting them to the Dragon Gate where Connington's men received them and placed under guard. Grain carts rolled from granaries to Flea Bottom. Children chased wheels, whooping. City watchmen posted scrolls of armistice. Any selling weapons or provoking riot would lose a hand, but food would be free. Within hours, taverns buzzed with rumors that the Prince of Prophecy had spared them fire. Meanwhile, outside, Robert paced before Rhaegar's pavilion, awaiting word. When Connington rode out bearing a white banner streaked with red wax of royal seal, the Storm Lord grabbed the man by shoulders. "Well?" Connington grinned. "City Watch stands down at dawn. Gates will open. No blood." He got no further. Robert whooped, flinging his helm into the air. Soldiers nearby roared. Yet, even as relief surged, Ned noticed Tywin's banners dusting ridge to the west, long columns of crimson creeping like a clot toward the city. He nudged Robert, pointed. Fury replaced joy. "The lion comes to feast," Robert growled. They spurred horses to council. At first light, Rhaegar stood atop the Mudgate rampart in polished breastplate, stark direwolf stitched across pauldron beside dragon. Lyanna stood beside him, cloaked in gray trimmed crimson, rubies shining at her throat. Inside the gatehouse, cranks squealed. Portcullis rose. Trumpets blew across the field. The allied host marched. First Jon Arryn's falcons, then Riverlords, then Northmen with gray banners rippling. Small folk lining streets blinked tears to see Ned Stark ride at their prince's shoulder. Behind came Robert astride steel-gray stallion, hammer resting across his thighs. Face stern but eyes bright. Flower petals rained from balconies. Red, white, purple. Chanting swelled. "Prince, prince, prince, prince." But some voices cried, "King," as well. Rhaegar acknowledged none. He kept eyes forward, searching for danger. Near Baelor's Sept, a cluster of gold cloaks knelt, presenting surrendered keys. He accepted them, passed to Connington. As procession reached the Red Keep's lower bailey, a roar thundered outside city walls. Tywin's host approaching the western gate. Rhaegar halted column. "Robert, guard the Lion Gate," he commanded. "Do not strike first. If Tywin enters peacefully, let him witness order restored." Robert grimaced but wheeled his stallion and galloped, Stormlanders thundering in his wake. Rhaegar ascended the broad steps to the keep's inner yard. There Jaime awaited, cloak once more pristine white, though streaks of green powder still smeared boots. He knelt. "The king is in the throne room. Alone save 2 guards. He bade Rossart light the city, but Rossart never returned." Jaime's throat bobbed. "He is not... well." Rhaegar drew a long breath. "Stand with me." They pushed through doors of ironwood, banded in black steel. The throne room was vast and echoing, lit by sporadic torches that cast blade shadows across floor. Aerys sat hunched upon the iron throne. Crown askew, nails bloodied. Charred fingers clutched a half-burned parchment. When he lifted his head, the madness in his eyes seemed to flicker like green fire. "So the prodigal returns," he rasped. "Come to usurp, have you? Well, here is your seat. Sit upon it and feel every blade prick your liar's skin." Rhaegar advanced alone, sword sheathed. 12 yards separated father and son, across a mosaic floor, inlaid with Targaryen sigil. Each step rang. He halted just beyond spear thrust. "Father," he said softly, "the city welcomes our banners. Your reign can end with peace. Abdicate. Take the black if you will, or retire to Dragonstone. Let the realm heal." Aerys laughed high and shrill. "Peace? You think I fear peace? Peace stole my son, my crown, my queen." Spittle flew. "They whispered in your ear, I know, prophecy. The promised prince lies. I am fire made flesh." He raised a trembling hand. Flame blossomed. He held a clay flask of wildfire primed with wick. Torches glared green reflection. Jaime tensed. The 2 guards flanking the throne looked ashen. Rhaegar lifted empty hands. "The caches are doused. Only you will burn." He stepped closer. "Enough, father. Give me the flask." Aerys shrieked, hurling the vial. Jaime moved, so swift even dawn's light trailed behind. He caught the king's arm, wrenched hard. Bone cracked. The flask tumbled, green fluid sloshing. Jaime hurled it at the marble, covering it with his white cloak. The wick sputtered, but no spark touched oil. Aerys screamed, twisting. But Jaime's sword flashed, steel-drawn arc silver, and the Mad King's voice ended in a wet choke. Blood sprayed crimson across iron blades, pattering like rain on tin. Silence crashed heavy. Rhaegar closed his eyes. When he opened them, he knelt, pressing 2 fingers to his father's neck. Nothing. Jaime staggered back, pale. "He would have burned us all," he said. "I know," Rhaegar answered. He rose, glanced at the 2 guards. They fell to knees, dropping pikes, trembling. Rhaegar turned to Jaime, extended hand. Jaime stared, then placed his sword into Rhaegar's grip and knelt. Rhaegar weighed the blade, then returned it hilt first. "Stand, Sir Jaime of the Kingsguard. Your duty was hard, but you served realm before oath." In that stillness, the throne loomed. Rhaegar approached, gaze roving over fused swords, whispers of ancient heat, trapped in iron. He did not sit. Instead, he drew off crimson and gray cloak, laid it across the seat so naked blades lay sheathed beneath cloth. Then he turned to face the hall. Lyanna entered, Arthur Dayne at her side. She took Rhaegar's hand. Ned followed, helm under arm, eyes on fallen king. Pycelle waddled behind, cheeks wet-eyed. Varys melted from shadow, whispering of Tywin's approach to the gates. "Fetch my mother," Rhaegar said, "and Princess Elia with her children. The realm shall see its royal blood united." Varys bowed, silks whisper soft. Beyond the walls, Tywin's columns halted before the Lion Gate. Robert rode out alone, hammer across saddle, banner of truce fluttering. He called for parley. Tywin, resplendent in gilded plate, advanced with only Kevin at his side. Words were brief. The king was dead by a lion's hand. The dragon prince held city, order restored. Host invited under charter of peace, or commanded to camp outside and cause none. Tywin's eyes narrowed, calculating odds, counting corpses not yet fallen. He accepted invitation with cool grace, ordered his men to quarter in the western ward, under strict discipline. Robert escorted him beneath gate portcullis. Tywin's marched through streets, past wagons distributing free bread. Small folk cheered despite lion sigils. He noted this, storing information like coin. When he arrived at the Red Keep and saw Rhaegar greeting Queen Rhaella, mother pressed tear-damp kiss to son's cheek, and Elia holding Rhaenys on one hip while Lyanna stood by with hand resting over unborn child. A spark lit in Tywin's pale green eyes, an appreciation for tableau of power, unity, and legitimacy no blade could sever. For now, he bowed. Rhaegar convened great lords that evening in the throne room, its floor scrubbed but bloodstained still dark between tiles, to witness his coronation on the morrow. He knelt before the High Septon. Lords swore swords. Tywin's voice rang among them, as did Hoster's, Jones, and even Chelsted's. Robert voiced oath, third, booming. When ceremony ended, the hall erupted in cheer oddly muted by exhaustion. Later, in a quiet solar, Rhaegar, Lyanna, Elia, and Robert met alone. Candles cast amber pools on oak. Rhaegar addressed Elia first. "Sister, the realm owes you debt. Sunspear shall be granted status equal with Stormlands and North. Each prince of Dorne may style himself prince as of old, and your children remain heirs until my own are born." Elia bowed her head with grateful sorrow, knowing her marriage dissolving but her children's future secured. To Robert, Rhaegar offered joint regency until babe quickening within Lyanna was born and grown. Robert grinned wry. "I am no maester to mine ledgers, nor septon to soothe lords. Give me command of the king's armies in the Stormlands. Keep the drunkard occupied." Rhaegar clasped his forearm. "Then be my lord paramount of the storm." Robert's laughter boomed, echoing down corridor. Peace seemed at hand, yet across the narrow sea exiled princes of Blackfire line lifted cups, hearing rumors of death and transition. In Skagos, a boy with eyes like pale moons whispered to weirwoods that ice still remembered fire. In Ashai, hooded warlocks cast bones, muttering that balance had shifted but not settled. and in the shadows of King's Landing's gutters. Men who once thrived on chaos sharpened knives, for where order reigns, opportunity dies. On the second day after Aerys' fall, Rhaegar was crowned with the ancestral circlet of Valyrian steel and rubies. He knelt, head bowed. The High Septon placed crown upon silver hair. When Rhaegar rose, Lyanna stepped forward, belly swelling beneath pale silk, and the crowd shouted, "Queen Wolf!" Her coronet wrought of dragon bone, and winter roses glimmered. Bells clanged from every sept tower, echoing across the city and out over Blackwater Bay where ships dipped sails in salute. That night feasting filled the great hall from hearth to rood screen. Herds of aurochs roasted, Dornish red flowed like rivers, harpers plucked chords under crystal chandeliers. Rhaegar walked among his subjects unattired, save simple black doublet, speaking with potters, smiths, sell-sales. At high table, Tywin conversed with Mace Tyrell about rebuilding granaries, while Robert wagered arm wrestles against Great John Umber. Ned stood near Lyanna, watching sisters' laughter ring free for first time since childhood. Yet across the hall, Jaime leaned against a pillar, expression distant. Brienne of Tarth, rumored to join fellowship, approached awkwardly. They spoke in low tones. She offered a battered helm from Stony Sept as token of shared defense. Jaime accepted, something easing in his eyes. Past midnight, when torches dimmed, Rhaegar and Lyanna escaped to the Garden of Moonbloom. Dew shimmered on petals. Scent, sweet. They walked beneath arbor of woven willow. Lyanna paused, gasping, her hand pressed belly. Rhaegar knelt, alarmed. But she smiled. It's only a kick. The babe celebrates victory. He exhaled, touched her stomach gently. Above, comet glow traced faint red streak across summer sky. Omen watchers would debate for generations, claiming it heralded dragon, reborn, wolf queen, or dawn of long night's end. Beneath it, freshly crowned king and queen embraced, heads bowed together. Their breaths mingled in the warm air, and for a span of heartbeats, the weight of crowns fell away, leaving only two souls who had risked all for love. In the hush that followed, the city slept, tired yet triumphant. But beyond horizon, waves whispered of ships unfurling black sails. In the north, ravens croaked warnings above ancient ice. Power shifts breed vacuums, and vacuums beg filling. The tale of wolf and dragon had not reached its final page. Rather, a new chapter cracked wide, its first lines inked in hope but margins still open to blood. Yet for this fleeting moment, amid fragrance of moonbloom and flicker of torchflies, Lyanna Stark and Rhaegar Targaryen held hands and dreamed that perhaps, just perhaps, the song of ice and fire might become a lullaby instead of a dirge. Nke, Ahenja. Soft mist clung to the waking city like a gossamer shroud, veiling King's Landing in pale gray as the bells still echoed from yesterday's coronation. Rhaegar rose before dawn, slipping from the royal bedchamber without rousing Lyanna. The hush of hallways felt changed overnight, as though every stone of the Red Keep waited to exhale. He descended flights of spiral stairs until the scent of forge coal reached him. Beneath the armory, Master Smith Tabo Mott was at work fashioning new fittings for a crown that would bear both dragon and direwolf. The smith bowed stiffly, his heavy eyelids ringed with ash. Rhaegar studied sketches pinned to a board, iron interlaced with pale weirwood inlay, rubies for dragonfire, and polished moonstone for winter snow. It was beautiful, but something jarred. He asked Tobho to elongate the direwolf's muzzle, to curve the dragon's neck less harshly, to marry grace to strength. As he spoke, he sensed the realm as a forge too, brittle when heated wrong, pliant when coaxed with patient blows. The lesson mirrored across iron and politics. Back upstairs, Lyanna greeted him on a balcony, hair silvered by dawn frost. She chided him for sneaking away. He brushed soot from his fingertips and, with sudden boyishness that startled them both, described the new crown and how it would rest lightly on her dark locks. She laughed, a sound he knew would always unmake his gravity, and tugged him close, but a tremor fluttered beneath her ribs. The babe turned again, testing the cage of womb. They stood together, listening to the city slowly bloom from sleep into clamor, and each felt the enormity surge. Council assembled at first light. Tywin sat straight-backed, silent, eyes ever measuring. Jon Arryn unrolled scrolls of provisional edicts, cancel the grain tax, fund repair of burned districts, grant amnesty for small folk, conscripted by the Mad King, call banners to rebuild roads from the Reach to King's Landing. Each decree tested alliances. Chelstead challenged expense. Tywin questioned leniency. Robert fidgeted until he could break the silence with a robust "aye" to whichever measure pleased him most, rarely the one Tywin favored. Rhaegar moderated, his voice calm silk, but every decision felt a spear point balancing on his spine. Only Varys spoke little, yet his presence hovered behind every question like a spider's thread. Invisible, tensile, inescapable. That afternoon, Rhaella visited. A smile lit her face, but sorrow hooded her gaze. Years of terror had carved hollows under her cheekbones. She knelt to Lyanna, blessing her belly in the Valyrian tongue. Lyanna answered in the quiet dialect of the north, invoking the old gods. Rhaella's lips parted in wonder at words older than dragonflames sung by a wolf queen. Later, seated in a sun-drenched solar, Rhaella confided a secret. She carried a child herself, conceived before Aerys' final descent. The revelation dropped like winter hail. 2 heirs yet unborn, one of fire and frost, one born solely of fire, destiny stirring in wombs. Rhaegar promised to shield his mother and her babe, but the knowledge felt like a stone slipped into his pocket, weighty, precious, perilous. As weeks folded into a new routine, repairs began. Guild masons filled cracks in Stony Sept. Dornish engineers reconstructed the dragon pit's dome with lighter ribs of brass. Northman carpenters reinforced harbor piers battered by seasons of neglect. Crowds thronged to watch Lyanna ride through Flea Bottom, handing out bread and smoked fish, laughing with barefoot children, while gray cloaks of the newly formed City Watch, commanded by Harold Harding under Ned's supervision, kept in easy peace. Yet there were shadows. Rats of rumor scurried down every alley, gnawing at unity. Flyers appeared claiming the Queen practiced dark northern rites beneath the weirwood transplanted to the godswood of Maegor's Holdfast. Someone poisoned wells in the Hook, killing dozens. Robert smashed tavern tables demanding culprits, but none were caught. Varys whispered of coin traced back to Storm's End. Bribes paid to outlaws turned saboteurs. Though Robert swore on his father's grave, he knew nothing. Rhaegar believed him, but suspicion, once uncaged, prowled. South blew hotter winds. Prince Doran's letter arrived edged with polite steel. Dorne accepted Aelius' revised station, yet demanded justice for harm endured. Oberyn, quick with quill as with spear, added postscript. Blood and joy alike have price, cousin. Rhaegar dispatched Ser Barristan to Sunspear bearing gifts, a sand steed foal for little Rhaenys, a lens-crafted star map for Aegon, and a rolled charter naming Elia Princess of Sunspear in her own right, free to marry if she wished. Whether such offerings sated Dornish honor remained unseen. Yet Barristan carried also an invitation. Dorne to send 200 spearmen north, to train under the Fellowship of the Dawn. The Fellowship grew apace within the stone-walled yard of the Quiet Isle, where Rhaegar ordered a separate compound built. Part monastery, part military academy. Jaime drilled with Brienne of Tarth beneath Arthur Dane's instruction. Maya Stone sparred against a silent sister from the Citadel's green blood. Brothers of the Knights Watch on Leave taught southern recruits how to ride in silence, how to navigate by moss at midnight. And at evening, under the austere sept of the Quiet Isle, Sept and Maribald read the histories of the long night, forging memory into armor. Rhaegar visited often, bringing Lyanna when her strength allowed. She rode a gentle mare, observing every bout with wolf-bright eyes. A hush fell each time she walked across the yard. She carried unborn heir and the weight of 2 houses entwined, and the Fellowship bowed to her as banner come flesh. Yet outside the Reach's golden fields, dark seeds sprouted. Gardeners reported swift attacks on supply caravans, men in gray half-cloaks, faces hidden. Some swore they moved like silent ice, killing with spear tips of polished black stone. Word reached the capital. a splinter movement styling itself the Frostborn Sons. Northern zealots incensed by what they deemed the southern corruption of House Stark through marriage to dragons. Rhaegar convened a council of northern lords, Umber, Karstark, Mormont, who all denounced the rogues, but the king sensed deeper currents. Not mere banditry, but fear of culture swallowed. Benjen volunteered to investigate, riding north with 50 rangers disguised as traitors. Ned watched him leave, grief and pride entwined. While Benjen rode, news arrived from the Stepstones. The Ragged Prince, a sell-sale of legend, had seized 3 Myrish cargoes bound for Westerosi ports, claiming recompense for debt unpaid by Dragon Wolf Crown. The Admiral of the Royal Fleet, Sir Imry Florent, requested funds to build additional dramans. Tywin opposed. Coin should fortify landward walls, not seas. Robert sided with Florent, even offering Stormlander timber. Mace Tyrell, scenting opportunity, proposed reach carpenters and sailors if allowed exclusive trade rights to arbor wines in the capital. Politics laced every cask and keel. Rhaegar navigated, granting each lord half his ask, and none his full desire, forging fragile consensus by method of shared disappointment. Among small folk, bards sang new songs. Of a midnight queen whose blade flashed white as winter's sun. Of a king who played silver strings to tame dragons of the sky. Yet whispers of Aerys' death by his son's command also spread, despite truth known by so few. Some insisted Jaime had acted on Rhaegar's secret order, fueling an unease among the faith-minded. Septons urged inquiry. High Septon, frail and wary, requested a truth council to exonerate the crown. Rhaegar consented, knowing lies grew strongest in silence. Trials in the Faith's Hall revealed the ledger sheets, the cut fuses. Jaime's testimony of last-moment defiance that saved city. Still, zealots fumed. Change always breeds those who would rather the world calcify than shift beneath their feet. Months rolled. Summer waned. Lyanna's labor approached. Maester Cresson, summoned from Dragonstone for his gentle ways, prepared birthing rooms in the Tower of the Hand, quieter than the Queen's chambers. Rhaegar seldom left Lyanna's side, delegating counsels to Jon Arryn. One moonless night, as they reclined by a brazier, Lyanna revealed a dream. She stood upon a field of frost, where a heart tree bled blue sap. Beside her Rhaegar breathed fire, yet it came out steam like on a frigid morn, and a child of shadow danced between them. She feared omen, but he pressed her palm to his heart, promising dream would turn at dawn to nothing more than tale. Dawn came, and with it, blood. Labor racked Lyanna under braziers that glowed dim in first light. Rhaegar clenched her hand, whispering Valyrian lullabies. Outside, thunder rolled though skies were clear. Hours crawled. Lyanna's cry rose like wounded wolf. Then, after agony laced by silent terror, a wail-pierced chamber, a son, slick with birth blood robust. Cresson laid him on Lyanna's chest. She wept, half laugh, half sob. The babe had downy hair of nocturne black, eyes startlingly dark violet, dusk and dawn in one gaze. Rhaegar named him Jaehaerys for the conciliator of old, but Lyanna insisted a northern name join it. Jaunt. Thus he was Jon Jaehaerys Targaryen, Prince of Winterfell. Bells rang again. Crowds thronged the streets cheering for dawn-born prince. Taverns poured watered ale free. But that same hour, ravens from the wall shrieked tidings. White shadows sighted beyond frost fangs, whites stirring in small numbers, and a ranger patrol missing. Lord Commander Corgyle begged the crown to send maesters versed in ancient magics and glass candles to supply dragon glass blades, rumored fatal to these pale demons. Rhaegar's joy chilled. He summoned the Fellowship of the Dawn to assemble for a royal audience. In the throne room he lifted obsidian dagger he had set aside from Lyanna's pendant and declared northern threat real. Volunteers stepped forward. Arthur Dane, Dawn Shining. Brienne, Maya Stone. 2 silent sisters. Even Jaime, though Ned eyed him warily. Rhaegar planned an expedition, a corps of scholars from the Citadel. Carpenters to reinforce castles Eastwatch and Shadow Tower, smiths to craft dragonglass spearheads. He and Lyanna would ride no farther than Winterfell, but their presence would embolden vows. The queen, still weak from birth, insisted on travel once moves turned past. Maester Crescent balked yet could not quell her conviction. Preparations breathed urgency into the capital. Beckoned by need for knowledge, Archmaester Marwyn arrived bearing a case of black candles carved from fused obsidian, said to burn without heat. He advised midnight experiments in the refurbished undercrypt beneath Maegor's holdfast, once vault of dragon skulls, now seat of arcane study. Tywin scoffed at smoke and stories, but Rhaegar gave Marwyn latitude. For battle the realm faced might not bow to sword alone. As Caravan North readied, Ironborn reeved along Sunset Sea. Victarion Greyjoy seized Fair Isle ships, boasting the king's inland focus left coasts unguarded. Rhaegar, torn, proposed dispatching Garland Tyrell's Greenhand fleet. Tywin argued again for consolidating. Robert countered, "Give me ships. I'll break their salt-soaked skulls." In compromise, Rhaegar appointed Stannis Baratheon Master of Ships. Stannis sailed within a fortnight. Red blazoned fury across black sails whipping salt spray. With politics raging, Prince Joan's naming day came. Lyanna carried him into the godswood planted on Palace Hill, sapling heart tree trunk pale as moonlight. Rhaegar stood before kneeling lords, naked steel laid over infant, in tradition from both North and Crown. Birds chorused above, drifting leaves whispered secrets. Lyanna carved a prayer into trunk, a single direwolf sigil overshadowing dragon wings, two shapes merging. Blood welled bright, soaking new leaves. Ned, watching, felt prickling certainty that in years hence, this bleeding tree would stand larger than any stone throne, bearing witness to fate none could yet chart. 3 days later, as purple harvest dusk fell, the northern caravan departed. Queen rode in enclosed litter at first, but by second day insisted on horseback. Jon swaddled against her breast, head cushioned by wolf pelt. Rhaegar rode beside, a scenic tapestry of lords and scholars trailing behind. Ned led vanguard scouts. Jaime commanded rear guard. They crossed the Trident without incident, though at the ford Rhaegar paused, remembering once bloody memories now washed clean by time. At every hamlet small folk lined roadways, curious and hopeful. Some lowered eyes, still fearing dragons. Others knelt. Lyanna bent to speak gentle words in small tongues, promising roads repaired, tithes eased, justice equal. Halfway to Winterfell, Benjen returned, gaunt, eyes ice hard. He reported Frostborn sons not common Northmen, but envoy of something older. They bore weapons tipped in strangely translucent black, colder than obsidian, glimmering blue when moonlight struck. They claimed allegiance to King of Winter's shadow, and quoted prophecies echoing Children of the Forest myths, yet twisted. Benjen carried one of their blades. Rhaegar touched it and felt a chill leech warmth. Marwyn's pupils dilated. He muttered of magic forged in night deeper than memory. Lyanna shivered, drawing Sun closer. Winterfell welcomed caravan with roaring hearths. Rickard Stark embraced daughter and widening diplomatic tapestry. Below crypts they gathered. Rhaegar knelt before granite ancestors, pledging guardianship. At feast that followed, Great John Umber smashed mugs and toast until servants fetched barrels instead. Reed children of the Crannogs danced frogfoot jigs. Yet beneath revel, Ned and Rhaegar conferred. Scouts sighted unnatural lights beyond the wall. Green and blue flickers, different from Aurora's. Night before they would march farther north, Lyanna dreamed again. Heart tree bled blue, but now infant Jon pressed tiny palm to trunk and sap turned red gold, like dawn melting frost. She woke, foretelling hope. Dawn broke, brittle cold. They set forth, baggage creaking, breath pluming. Snow began as flurries by evening, thickened to heavy curtain by dawn. Near Long Lake, they met rangers who escorted them along King's Road spurs to Castle Black. Wall loomed, pale monolith, midnight color under muted sky. Jon, peeking from firs, cooed, as though greeting ancient specter. Lord Commander Corgyle led them beyond gate into warmth of hall, by dark lanterns. Rhaegar addressed the watch. He came not as king but as brother of realm, seeking knowledge. Marwyn demonstrated black candle. Its flame danced green gold, casting no heat yet lighting minds. Images flickered on walls of cold armies, horned shadows, swirling storms. Brothers gasped. Candle snuffed. Silence pooled heavy. Work began. Smiths forged spearheads of dragonglass at forges, built using Maester Donal Noy's clever bellows. Miners combed Dragonstone's shores for fresh shards, shipped up the King's Road. Carpenter crews shored watch castles neglected for decades, scoured sealed scrolls behind library towers' icy doors, unearthing accounts of ancient pacts. One spoke of weddings of shadow and dawn, where children half ice, half fire were keys of peace. Rhaegar pondered his son, born of precisely such union. Nights grew colder. Patrol spoke of shapes glimpsed, tall figures pale as hoarfrost gliding in tree line, eyes dull luminescence, bolts loosed at them shattered. One ranger found horse flayed open, flesh crystallized. Panic simmered. Rhaegar ordered double watches and introduced fellowship pairs into ranger companies. Jaime roved with veteran Corin Halfhand, tension between Lion and Black Cloak thawing into mutual respect. Brienne and Maya trekked Jarwick Pass, mapping ice fissures. Lyanna spent evenings in the rookery, rocking Jon while reading ancient runes with Maester Aemon. Old, blind, yet mind, bright as new snow. Aemon wept one night, fingers brushing child's cheek. He whispered that Prince's birth fulfilled promise of song long prophesied. Midwinter storm hit, gale that hammered wall with fists of frozen fury. Fires guttered, gates iced shut. In that white darkness horns blew, one blast, then three, ancient call for others. Men scrambled, gripping torches, dragonglass, swords. From atop the wall, sentries cried warning. Blue glowing eyes advancing across windswept plain beyond the haunted forest. Scores, perhaps hundreds. Shapes half concealed in swirl of ice. At center rode figure taller, armor rime white, crown of icicles fused to skull. He raised blade blacker than night, mirrored ring-like twists along its length, stone of frostborn weapon. But around his gauntleted wrist wrapped tattered gray cloth embroidered with direwolf. Old Stark banner. Shock rippled through watchers. A Stark ancestor? Benjen's face drained. Rhaegar's breath crystallized in throat. The icy king halted just beyond arrow flight, lifted free hand to remove helm. Visage bone white, features not decayed but preserved by winter's kiss, eyes deep blue flame. He spoke, voice like cracking lake ice, yet words clear. Ancient dialect of the first men that only Lyanna understood from old Nan's tales. He demanded parley under Hearttree beyond the wall, claiming right of ancient pact, broken when dragons came south and kings forgot the old. If refused, winter would march. Council debated feverishly. Some urged attack with catapults of wildfire jars shipped north unknown to most. But Rhaegar stayed hand. Prophecy whispered of doom when fire lit the wall. Instead he, Lyanna, Ned, Benjen, and 3 fellowship knights crossed the gate into forest at dawn. Snow muffled sound. Frost bit through furs. Beneath an immense weirwood, bark bone pale. Leaves dark crimson despite season. The Ice King waited. His retinue stood silent as statues. Blades, misting, chill. Parley unfolded in haunting chorus. Through Lyanna's translations, they learned his name. Salian Stark, last son of the first winter. Taken by children of the forest to halt war between men and treefolk in age before the night's watch. Bound to ice, he became warden over deathless armies released only when pacts shattered by dragonfire and blood of innocents spilled in forest glades. He claimed that with return of dragons to ruling court, balance was broken anew. Rhaegar knelt beneath Hearttree, laid his sword upon snow, offered child of both houses, Jon, as living symbol of renewed pact. He asked that host of ice stand guard beyond the far frost for a generation, to give realm time to mend. Celian's blue eyes flickered. Winter wind swirled. With measured precision, the king of ice took bone dagger, cut his own palm. Blue ichor droplet hissed upon snow. Then he scored bark of heart tree, where sap welled dark blue. Lyanna, surprising all, slit her thumb, pressed it to sap. Blood of red and blue mingled, turning purple like bruise at twilight. Celian held out his frost blade, reversed grip. Rhaegar took it, feeling scream of cold gnaw marrow. He thrust it into snow upright between them. Silence reigned. Finally, Celian lifted arms, called in strange tongue. The ice host stepped back, vanished into swirling snow as though drawn into fold of sky. Only Celian remained, gaze on Jon cradled in Lyanna's arms. In sudden motion he removed icicle crown, offered it to child. Crown melted into silver droplet that drifted onto Jon's brow, marking it with faint starburst scar. Celian turned, strode into blizzard, form dissipating to flurries, until none remained. When fellowship returned, dawnlight glimmered weak, but alive. Watch brothers gathered, astonished at truce. Rhaegar ordered immediate dispatch of ravens to every corner. Threat receded, but vigilance must not wane. He tasked fellowship to keep permanent garrison of scholars and warriors at Castle Black. Order more inclusive than watch, but sworn to realm, mixing women and men, bastards and born. Old guard grumbled, young blood cheered. Spring edged timidly weeks later. Under softer sky, caravan headed south. Jon cooed each time wind stirred, as though speaking to ghosts. They paused at Winterfell. Rickard wept to see direwolf banner still proud. He pressed Rhaegar to accept northern firs and granite masons for King's Landing's battered walls. Upon return, the capital welcomed them with freshly unfurled banners sewn by flea-bottom tailors. Dragon entwined by direwolf, forming ring around Morning Star. A new sigil for Prince Jon. Bells sounded, but Tywin observed all from tall balcony. Silent calculations grinding. Dorne's spears began arrival under Oberyn. Curiosity piqued by tales of ice kings and living myths. Across narrow sea, ragged prince vanished, leaving rumors he sought artifact of ice in distant ETI. Everywhere change churned. In council chamber Rhaegar issued proclamation. Realm henceforth recognized dual faiths of 7 and old gods. The king's road north would be paved with stone. Dragons, if ever reborn, would serve men, not rule them, and the fellowship would stand equal in honor to Kingsguard. Tywin's eyebrows rose. Robert clapped like thunder. Jon Arryn smiled faint. That evening, Lyanna stood beside window, overlooking Blackwater. Jon asleep in cradle carved of weirwood and black oak. Rhaegar wrapped arms about her. They watched last light fade. Ships from Storm's End and Highgarden bobbed golden in harbor. Lanterns blinking messages of commerce, alliance, uncertain futures. She whispered, "The song is only beginning." He kissed the starburst scar on Jon's brow. Far away in haunted forest, blue sap dripped from heart tree, mixing again with red, and spring thaw spread slow promise south. Yet, under depths of Dragonstone where once slept fireworms, a heartbeat pulsed in dark shell forgotten among volcanic rubble. An egg long cold, now warmed by shifting fate. Cracks spidered across black surface. A sliver of scaled snout pierced through, tasting stale magma-scented air. Eyes the color of sunrise and frost opened. The realm breathed, balanced on edge of dawn, while below, wings stretched for first time in a century. And the newborn dragon made its silent vow to sky. The lullaby of ice and fire had become an anthem. Oh, call. The egg cracked beneath a hush so profound, even the sea seemed to hold its breath. Deep within Dragonstone's fused labyrinth, those twisting tunnels where ancient fires once raged and cooled into glassy black, an ember glow pulsed from a cradling web of pumice and scoria. Minute fissures spidered outward, shedding slivers the color of hammered night. A tongue of steam curled up the shaft, drifting past sculptures, half devoured by centuries of salt. Then, as though startled by its own heartbeat, the shell split along a jagged equator, and something living exhaled a trembling plume of orange-red. A hatchling unfolded, limbs slick with yolk, wings as thin as half-cured parchment. It blinked membrane-slick eyes, one a molten gold, the other pale as dawn on snowfields, and chirruped a probing note into the cavern's lonely air. The sound fluttered along basalt ribs, searching for answer, finding only echoes. Instinct tugged it forward. Claws scratched obsidian. A line of glowing prints trailed behind as its heat woke the very stone. The newborn paused at a ledge, overlooking the vast central shaft, and spread its wings. Scant air caught them, but sparks danced in the webbing, each spark a promise of unmeasured blaze. Above, storms massed like steel wolves. Dragonstone's towers, sharp as sorcerers' fingers, shredded low clouds bearing glimpses of restless moon. Only the eldest keepers remembered how dragons cried when first touching sky. None remained alive to teach hatchlings flight. Yet something older than blood whispered to the little one, a memory encoded in bone. It clambered higher, talons cleaving purchase where none seemed present, up through vent shafts and broken grates, until the salt-wet wind slapped its muzzle. Lightning strobed, illuminating wings pearl-outlined, translucent as butterflies. With a shrill trill, it leapt, fell, caught a current, and soared into storm. Wendero. The raven arrived 2 nights later, soaked through and half dead, but still clenching a thin vellum scrap marked by Grand Maester Aerys of Dragonstone. Rhaegar untied the ribbon with fingers that did not quite tremble. Lyanna's pulse hammered beside him as they bent to read by lantern light. Dragon hatched, it said in script, small and neat. Sex indeterminate, crimson-white mottled scales, eyes mismatched. Temperament curious, not hostile. Awaiting royal command. Nawanshan. Lyanna exhaled a laugh that sounded like awe and dread braided together. Prophecy has no patience, she murmured, bouncing John. Now 9 turns of the moon, upon her hip. The babe gurgled, small fists grasping at the parchment as though trying to eat fate itself. Rhaegar closed his eyes, hearing at once the jubilant notes of his harp and the screams of war his ancestors waged astride flame. The realm had tasted only tentative peace. Would a dragon's shadow thicken or lift that peace? He pressed kiss to John's brow, feeling faint warmth pulse beneath the starburst scar. "We must greet the creature," he said, "before rumor outruns truth." "Well," Tywin Lannister heard before dawn. Spies kept in flea-bottom brothels, paid with silver and silence, brought word to his solar in the Tower of the Hand, where he still lodged, though no longer commanding chain of office. He rolled the message once, twice, slipped it into brazier flame, and watched it curl to ash. A torch of amber light carved his face into angular truths. He would have to act soon or cede momentum to young idealists who believed dragons could be tamed by lullabies. Across the hall, Cersei cradled a goblet of arbor gold, green eyes glimmering. She had never forgotten that the Silver Prince had once crowned her queen of love and beauty, only to abandon the notion. A dragon reborn hinted possibilities, marriage alliances, levers of fear. When her father emerged, she asked nothing, but her gaze clung to him like a question already answered. Whence? In Sunspear, Oberyn Martell stood upon a parapet, watching couriers mount fresh camels. The news brought a feral smile. "Fire returns to the Fireborn," he said to his sister, "yet frost lives in their queen's veins. Let us see what child of embers and snow can be taught." Elia, still bruised with quiet hurt but resolute, urged restraint. The children waved wooden swords below. Rhaenys fierce, Aegon thoughtful. They would inherit a world balancing on dragon wing beats. She prayed those wings would shield, not scourge. And the Fellowship of the Dawn gathered in King's Landing's training yard, sun-gilding polished helms. Arthur Dayne listened as Jaime read Garrus' longer follow-up. The hatchling nested atop Dragonmont, fed on mountain goats, responded to high-pitched whistles. Whispers claimed it breathed not orange but a bluish-white flame that left stone rimed with frost. Brienne frowned. Ice fire. Maya Stone spat chewgrass. Worlds cracking. Arthur cleaned Dawn's blade on oiled cloth. When cracks appear, we mend them or fall through. They agreed. A cadre would sail with the king to Dragonstone, offer escort, study creature. Maester Marwyn insisted on joining with glass candle contraptions to record temperature flux. Ned Stark prepared to accompany, though uneasy. Wolves did not love volcanic isles. Lyanna, hearing this, joked that Jon's lungs already roared like a hatchling's. She would not be left behind. Arguments died beneath her unmoving gaze. Wine. On the eve of departure, King's Landing writhed with unnamed tension. Faith militant pamphlets decried dragonkind as abomination resurrected through union of witch blood and heathen gods. Septons thundered that Seven saved city once from wildfire would do so again. Rhaegar addressed crowds from balcony, cloak of black and gray rippling. I have heard your fears, he declared, and I will face them first. He promised open accounting of all dragon dealings. Swore Dragonpit would never again become prison of cruelty but sanctuary of learning. Some cheered. Others spat. The promise tasted of hope, yet memory of burning still clung to mortar. That night, assassins crept into Maegor's holdfast. 2 charcoal-clad men, breath reeking of nightshade, slipped past drowsy guards. Their blades glittered green. Wildfire slivers sealed in glass along the edges. They found the nursery window ajar, drifted inside toward cradle where Jon nestled. A low growl froze them. Ghost. A direwolf pup gifted by Benjen prowled inside shadow. His white fur nearly glowed. The first assassin lunged. Ghost's fangs closed on wrist, crunching bone. The second raised dagger, but an arrow thumped his chest. Ashara Dane stepped from corridor, hair unbound, eyes flaring. Arthur followed, sword bare. Within heartbeats, both men lay bleeding. Lyanna burst in, snatching Jon. Rhaegar arrived, robe half-fastened, fury cold. They scanned the blades. Wildfire. Had it shattered near the babe, green inferno would have devoured nursery. Varys emerged ghost-like, his whispered network already tugging threads. One assassin bore tattoo of 7-pointed star dart. Another's boot heel embossed with Lannister lion. Complicity or misdirection? Tywin denied knowledge. High Septon wept prayers. Rhaegar tightened city watches. Within hours, pamphlets twice as venomous appeared, claiming Queen conjured assassination for sympathy. Distrust spread like grease on water. At dawn, the royal fleet unfurled sails. A mix of crowned stag, direwolf, 3-headed dragon. Ships cut through gentle swells, leaving capital behind simmering. Stannis Baratheon, lean and wind-scarred, took personal command. Gulls wheeled above as Black Betha led. The voyage proved uneventful until mid-journey. A bank of unnatural fog rose, roiling black and silver. Compass needles spun, torches flared blue. Mariners whispered sorcery. Marwyn lit a glass candle. Emerald light sliced mist, but he paled. Something prowls these waters. Magic not seen since Valyria drowned. From the fog burst a sleek sloop, bearing tattered gray sails, sigil unrecognized. Curve of horned moon clutching black flame. Its captain, lean with braided silver hair and one blindfolded eye, hailed them in Valyrian. He offered tribute, crates of jade figurines, and hailed the storm of prophecy. Stannis' jaw tightened. The stranger named himself the Crow's Shadow, envoy of the Ragged Prince. He asked permission to accompany fleet to Dragonstone to witness rebirth for his master. Rhaegar considered, then refused. The sloop faded back into fog, but unease remained. Come no winter. Dragonstone's jagged skyline greeted them under violet dusk. Smoke wafted from Dragonmon's summit, tinted opalescent. Landing parties climbed crab-haunted stairs. Grand Maester Garrus greeted with deep bow, then guided them up corkscrew stairs carved into mountain guts. Heat thickened, lantern wicks sputtered. At last a cavern yawned, ribbed by columns of fused scales, evidence of drakes long dead. In center, coiled the hatchling upon pile of black glass shards. Wings folded, snout twitching to scent strangers. It was larger than reports, perhaps a small pony in length. Scales pearl white along belly fading to crimson along spine. The mismatched eyes flicked between visitors. Marwyn muttered incantations. Quills scratched. Rhaegar removed gauntlets, stepped forward, humming gentle chords of an old Valyrian song. Lyanna watched, heart thudding. The dragon's pupils narrowed. It hissed, then, remarkably, arched neck, exposing throat. Rhaegar halted an arm's length away. He extended hand. The dragon sniffed, exhaled breath neither warm nor cold, but carrying sharp ozone tang. It brushed his palm with muzzle, then turned, fixing gaze upon Jon nestled in Lyanna's arms. A low croon emerged, deeper than size implied. Jon squealed, chubby hands reaching. Lyanna's knees nearly unlocked, but she stepped nearer. The dragon lowered head until eye leveled with infant. Scales along its jaw shimmered like frost. Without warning, frost-tinged vapor spilled from its nostrils, coating Jon's blanket in rime that melted instantly. The babe giggled. The dragon blinked and withdrew, as though satisfied. Marwyn whispered, imprinting. Rhaegar felt world tilt. If beast bound to their son, politics would warp around that bond like iron around magnet. They spent days studying creature. It ate thrice daily. Goat, fish, once a charred wyvern carcass found floating at sea. Its flame, when coaxed, was indeed bluish-white, searing hot at core but rimmed with crackling cold, leaving stone glazed in frost lines. Aerys called it dragonfire, at absolute edges of temperature, where heat curved back into cold. He dubbed the beast Alix, Old Valyrian for twilight flame. Lyanna noted wings self-minted tiny tears within hours, secreting resin that congealed into translucent patches. Earlier dragons had such adaptability in youth, lost later. Perhaps prolonged absence of dragons left magic raw, letting new Drake rewrite old rules. On the seventh night, during vigil alone, Rhaegar strummed harp near nest. Alix listened. Each note raised mild sparks along spine. The king sang of dawn and dusk. From shadows, Salian stark stepped. Apparition? No, a dream. Yet real. His silhouette wavered like moonlight on ice. He spoke in first tongue none but Lyanna might have understood, yet Rhaegar comprehended still. Guard balance. Fire born of frost warms. Frost bred in fire cools. Then he vanished as dew under sun. Rhaegar sat shaken. Ishim? Meanwhile, storms brewed elsewhere. At Pike, Balon Greyjoy convened his salt captains. Victarion returned battered. Sans two ships. Stannis' fleet had forced Greyjoy Armada home with firepots and scorpions. Balon thirsted for retribution. Euron, freshly home from exile, boasted of seeing dragon hatchling with his crow's shadow spies. He vowed to capture beast, bend sky to kraken. Balon dismissed him until Euron produced artifact. A pale blue horn banded in Valyrian glyphs said to summon storms. And dragons. The captains murmured seance of greed. Across narrow sea in Tyrosh, Bitter Steel's last living grandson, Daemon Blackfire the Siftis, rallied Sellswords under Golden Dragon banner. He billed himself rightful king dispossessed by bastard line. Reports of dragon in Westeros emboldened him. He would offer alternative monarchy free of wolf taint. He secured loans from the Iron Bank, promising mineral rights beneath Rainwood. Iron Bank cared little for prophecy, much for repayment. In King's Landing, Tywin advanced quiet campaign. He funded faith militant cells, provided parchment and press to print condemnation of dragon as demon. He spoke publicly of reasonable restraints, privately of contingency. Robert drank amid these whispers, uneasy that Hammer might again need swings. Ned wrote letters north urging calm. He had seen Ice King vanish, believed treaties possible. And in Bashar, Rhaegar convened war council upon return. Tywin attended, face inscrutable. Stannis reported Greyjoy Horn rumors. Varys presented map, dotted with Blackfire recruitment camps across stepstones. Oberyn, newly arrived, confirmed spies that Iron Bank financed them. Discussion turned to Alix. Could he be weapon? Rhaegar refused. Dragon will fly only in defense, he insisted. Tywin steepled fingers. Weapon named or not, foes will move as though you intend to use it. Better strike first. Bebebsummed. Lyanna countered. If blood follows fear, we prove their fear wise. Jon Arryn suggested envoy to Iron Bank, offer repayment ahead of schedule to undercut loans. Robert barked. Throw coin at brazen sellsword, swing hammer. Voices rose. Jon, baby ambassador of innocence, slapped table and giggled. Laughter fractured tension. Ends with decision. Send three-pronged diplomacy. Oberyn to Braavos to negotiate economic isolation of Blackfires. Stannis to Pike, delivering ultimatum. Arthur Dayne to Stepstones with small elite unit to gather intelligence. Meanwhile, Castle Black Fellowship to maintain watch. Months rolled. Rhaella gave birth within Maegor's holdfast, daughter Visenya, pale and strong. Joy rippled, though succession lines tangled further. Elia Martell quietly married a Dornish lord, relinquishing claim to throne for her children, but securing them principality within Sunspear Bailiwick. Rhaegar granted. Clergy uprising in Old Town flared. Seminary called Dragon Spawn Devil demanded infant Jon surrender to faith for testing. High Septon, moderate, opposed. Zealots overran Stony Sept for 3 days, until Lord Redwine's forces quelled. Tyrell, smelling weakness in crown, withheld harvest levies, citing need to rebuild. In Dragonstone's yard, Alix grew to small wagon length, wings spanning 2. Jon toddled under guard, reaching for dragon scales. Alix allowed him near. Heat of body warmed Jon on cold mornings. Garrus carefully documented. Lyanna spent hours reading to both child and dragon, tales of Garth Greenhand, Nymeria's voyage. She believed dragon must learn stories to value humans beyond prey. One mist-dripping dawn, horns blared along North Coast. Ironborn longships swarmed Craw Point. Stannis engaged, but outnumbered. He sent Raven for aid. Alix's keen senses noticed messenger before any man did. Dragon screeched, beating wings, soared over bay trailing sparks of frostfire. Lyanna, frantic, watched from parapet. At council, debate raged. Release dragon to save fleet or forbid. Rhaegar remembered vow of defensive use. He loosed dragon with Arthur and Jaime on swift warship to stage command. Alix arrived as Ironborn torched coastline. Victarion's ship, Iron Victory, faced Stannis, Fury. At first dragon circled high, a crimson comet, as sailors gaped. Then frostfire cascaded, searing masts to glass, freezing seawater into sudden jagged reefs. Longships splintered. Casualties heavy but fewer than open battle might impart. Victarion fled. Horn left unblown. Stannis hailed dragon after victory with salute. Sailors knelt. News raced lightning fast. Dragon fought for realm, not throne alone. Yet in Pike Euron smirked. He tested Blue Horn, a wail like cracking glaciers sundered stone. Rigging collapsed, 3 thralls died, lungs burst. But Euron felt thrill of power. Van Nanharm. Arthur Dayne's mission uncovered stepstones. Camp stewing with Sellswords, awaiting Blackfire call. He infiltrated disguised. Heard talk of Pact of 9 expansion. Blackfire line, rebel Tyrell cousins, Ironborn detachments, merchants of Volantis. Arthur's men stole ledger of paymasters, fled by night. On return they were ambushed by golden masks, assassins of Volantine triarchy. Dawn flashed, blood-soaked sand. Arthur took arrow but survived, ledger secured. Among signatories a seal chilled them. A lion rampant, gold on red. Tywin had funded rebel bank accounts as hedge. Rhaegar confronted Tywin in council. The Lion Lord did not deny coin transfers, called them insurance should dragon rule fail. Rhaegar stripped him of Warden of West, appointing young Jaime in his stead to test loyalty. Jaime accepted pale but resolute. Tywin left court fiery. Cersei fumed, saw father humiliated, blamed Lyanna. She sought faith militant, offered gold. They plotted kidnapping of dragon egg rumored still unhatched on Dragonstone. Alix continuing growth necessitated new dragon pit, open roof amphitheater outside city walls with subterranean stables. Architects drafted airy domes of pale marble reinforced by iron cagework, cunningly designed to break rather than trap should beast panic. Rhaegar would not imprison as ancestors did. Laborers complained of cost, yet thousands found work. Flea Bottom whispered that King planted seeds of prosperity, while rivals hissed of vanity. While Pitt rose, Benjen returned south leading Frostborn sun emissaries. Not zealots but defectors disgusted by ice magic's zeal. They sought audience, pledging to reveal hidden caches of chillblades if given refuge. At council they spoke. Salien's pact held majority of host. But rogue Splinter, under wargskin sorcerer Raiden sought to raise undead and converge on Wall again. Rhaegar resolved to dispatch fellowship north before winter deepened. Brienne, Maya, Corran. New recruits of Sand Snakes training under Oberyn. Garagenin. On night before their departure, prophecy struck like silent bell. Marwyn's glass candles flared unbidden. Images shimmered. A horn carved of blue coral. A task force of kraken sails. Blackfire banners. Tyrell falcons veiled. And a dragon mightier than Alix, with wings shadowing sun. Flames dimmed, leaving room smelling of ozone and lilies. Marwyn recorded but dread spread. Greyjoy fleet attacked again, this time near Dragonstone during low tide. Euron commanded flagship. Silence, golden glyphs along hull. Blue horn blasted, sound tore sky. Alix convulsed mid-flight, shrieking. The dragon banked, drawn unwilling toward horn's call. Rhaegar raced to parapets, harp forgotten. He sang high Valyrian words of binding, strings glinting moonlight. Lyanna added northern lullaby, voice trembling yet fierce. Jon, perched in nurse's arms, clapped and babbled, the starburst scar glowing faint. Alix flight stuttered, tug of war between horn and song. At last dragon wheeled, breath of frostfire lancing sea, forcing silence to heal. Euron dropped horn, lips bleeding. His laughter, half mad, carried across waves. Every chain shows me path to forge new. Stannis' fleet arrived, driving Ironborn back, but horn sank not before Rhaegar glimpsed glyph. Same as artifact on assassin's blade. Connections coiled. Once shot. After battle, wreckage floated like ribs of Leviathan. Divers recovered horn shards. Maester Garrus warned they pulsed faint cold. Rhaegar ordered sealed vault beneath Red Keep. Tyrion Lannister, summoned to court as new West envoy, studied glyphs and remarked they matched legend of White Lotus conspiracy of Valyrian survivors who sought to bind elements of fire and ice to resurrect empire. Tyrion suggested scholars in Qarth may know more. In Stepstones, Daemon Blackfire VI Zeitzelis with Celsail force, declaring new capital. Iron Bank froze Targaryen accounts. Dornish envoys stalled. Tyrell hedge knights rumored to slip across sea. War drums quickened. Inside city, faith militants staged riot outside Dragon Pit site. They hurled dung, cried, "Abomination!" Robert arrived with handful Stormlanders and drank among them until they quieted, surprising all, then thundered truth. He had once hated dragons but had seen Frostfire protect realm. He accepted new era. Crowd dispersed half confused, half convinced by his roaring sincerity. Yet conspiracies tightened. Tywin in Casterly Rock amassed sellswords of Golden Company desert wings, promising gold to any who would kidnap dragon or prince. Now, Fellowship's northern expedition clashed with riding wargskins near Frostfangs. Brienne slew Icebear White, nearly lost arm to Chillblade. Corran lit signal fire of dragonglass powder, vaporizing undead ranks. They captured Raiden's tome, parchment of weirwood bark inked in mixture of blood and ground bone. It spoke of Great Cleave, the moment ice and fire tear realm to birth new world. Frostborn Splinter sought to accelerate. Arthur Dane delivered tome to Marwyn. Archmaester grew pale. In small hours, Rhaegar visited Crypt of Maegor to consult inscriptions. There he found Jaime studying wall reliefs. Talk turned from duty to burden. Jaime doubted he deserved West. Rhaegar counseled humility and justice. They emerged into courtyard where Alix perched upon archway. Dragon's eyes tracked them. Mismatched gaze mirrored union of their uneasy houses. Jaime reached to touch muzzle. Dragon accepted. Symbolism not lost on onlookers. Lion and dragon shaping new. Going. Spring edged again but felt thin as cracked ice. Dragon pit completed. Alix moved willingly to airy enclosure, roosting high under open hatch. Children lined streets to watch creatures' daily flights. Trade caravans doubled, novelty fueling commerce. Yet rumors now whistled from east. Blackfire forces, bolstered by Tyrell coin and ironborn defectors, built tall ships near Volantis to cross narrow sea. Ironbank hedged anew. Quarth merchants sold obsidian in bulk to both sides. War loomed sharper than ever. Rhaegar summoned Grand Council at Harrenhal's rebuilt Great Hall, the place love once declared itself. Lords arrived. Stark, Aeron Baratheon, Tyrell's cautious Sion Garland, Martell Fiery, Greyjoy's envoys forced by circumstance. Even Tywin appeared, cool lion once more. Rhaegar laid threat bare. Blackfire claimant, horn capable of enslaving dragons, north still fragile, faith unrest. Lions funding rebels. He offered unprecedented charter. Great Council of 7 regents guiding realm with rotating leadership. King is arbiter not dictator. Seats reserved for faith, small folk and fellowship. Many balked. Some warmed. Debate raged 3 days, echoes haunting melted towers. On final night, ice rain hammered slate. Tywin approached Rhaegar alone under shell-scarred arch. He spoke quietly. You ask lions to trust shepherds who let wolves and dragons nest. Give me heir to wed my granddaughter once grown. Bind our fortune to yours and rebels lose my purse. Rhaegar considered. He thought of Jaime's honor, of Cersei's ambition curbed but not quenched, of legacy. He refused dynastic hostage, offered instead trade monopoly to Lannisport and position of Master of Coin to Tyrion. Tywin's mouth tightened yet nodded. He would calculate profit anew. Council signed Compact of Harrenhal, Collective Defense Pact, disavowal of Blackfire claims, restitution for Greyjoy raids via Reach Grain, Faith granted auditing of Dragonpit humane care, Fellowship recognized independent order. Peace flickered, but still faced gale. Blackfire fleet set sail regardless, 20,000 strong. Alix, now the size of adult horse, glided above Blackwater. Frostfire crackling along Maud Dolju. Jon toddled holding mother's hand atop wall, eyes tracking father's banners marshalling. Rhaegar strapped sword at hip. Harp at back. Music and war, never far. He resolved to meet invaders at sea before they touched sand. Yet with caution lest dragon become terror symbol. He worked with Stannis on battle plan. Dragon to cripple flagship, fleets to encircle. On eve of departure, Lyanna visited Weirwood transplanted in Godswood. Moonlight silvered her hair. She knelt, whispered for courage. Jon babbled beside. Wind rustled leaves. Crimson eyes of tree seemed to blink. Voice rustled back, faint. Like memory of Celian Stark. Balance will tilt. Choose edge carefully. She rose colder, fiercer. Whale day. Battle of Stepstones dawned furious. Stannis fleet flanked. Dornish Dromans peppered enemy with scorpion bolts tipped obsidian. Mid-fight Blackfire flagship. Fireborn revealed stolen wildfire bombs. As they ignited, horizon blossomed sickly green. Alix streaked sky, unleashing ribbon of frostfire that froze conflagration into brittle jade shell, which shattered harmlessly. Sailors cheered, yet horn blast cut air. Second blue horn. Smaller, aboard corvette. Dragon faltered. Rhaegar, on prow of morning requiem, Strummed harp strings tuned to resonance lane opposite. Marwyn's glass candle pulsed harmonic. Notes wove counterchord. Dragon steadied but tussled between calls. Then unexpected. Jon, safe on Dragonstone with Lyanna, wailed as if horn tore through dream. Alix heard, snapped free, dove at corvette. Frostfire cone obliterated deck, horn melted. Blackfire line broke. Stannis boarded, fireborn. Duel with Daemon Sixt ended hammer-crushing breastplate. Rebel fleet rout. Survivors fled east. Victory sealed. Aftermath. Alix injured. Arrow lodged in wing joint. Lyanna arrived riding swift cutter. Her tears salted wound as Garrus dressed. Dragon nuzzled. Scar on Jon's brow glowed. Realm erupted in jubilation. Songs hailed Frostfire's grace. Faith militant, reluctantly blessed beast as heaven's balance. Trade boomed. Harvest came. Yet seeds of next storm already sown. Euron sailed west clutching horn shards. Tyrell matriarch Olenna plotted to place granddaughter upon throne by marriage. To maybe Jon, Iron Bank sought vengeance for loan default. Rhaegar's cult fragments hid in rivers. Murmuring Great Cleave not stopped, only delayed. In quiet of Red Keep's balcony, Rhaegar held Jon against chest, Lyanna beside. They looked toward Dragonstone, where silhouette of Alix circled dawn sky, wings haloed. Our song continues, Rhaegar said. Lyanna nodded. Until balance sings itself whole. Below, city stirred. Hammer strikes on iron. Children's laughter. Distant bell. Above, clouds drifted. White and dark. Weaving tapestry neither pure nor malign. Simply vast. And threading all, unseen but felt, the melody of ice and fire rose. A slow, inexorable cadence edging razor line of tomorrow. Ka. Gri. Ha. A hush lingered over the city in the wake of celebration, the sort of reverent hush that follows an opera's final note. Yet beneath the hush, King's Landing's ancient stones thrummed with possibilities. Some bright as sunrise on the black water, some dark as the forgotten catacombs deep beneath the Red Keep. Rhaegar could feel those currents even as he stood in the highest garden of Maegor's Holdfast, where night-blooming jasmine spread a perfume so rich it silenced conversation. The moon was a curved shard of milk glass smudged with cloud, a blade half drawn from its sheath. And for the first time, since he could recall, Rhaegar found himself listening for danger in even the gentle patter of petals drop into the path. Lyanna entered quietly, slipping from the nursery where Jon slept. Her steps were sure, wolf steps, light and certain, and she carried a rolled sheaf of parchment. When she reached him, she brushed wind-tossed silver hair from his brow and pressed the parchment into his hand without a word. He unrolled it near the glow of an iron lantern and frowned. The seal impressed into pale blue wax was unfamiliar. A stylized kraken with a single eye. The script within was harsher still. 3 lines in a slanted sea spray hand that smelled faintly of myrrh and pitch. Your dragon's frost. My horns call. The sea will birth a sky of knives. Pay salt and shadow or drown. Below those words a signature. Euron Crow's shadow. Rhaegar turned the parchment so Lyanna could read it. Her mouth hardened, her gaze sliding instinctively toward the distant southeast, where the sea stretched invisible in darkness. A threat, she murmured. Or an invitation. Both, perhaps. Rhaegar guided her to the low wall. Below them, torchlights traced lazy arcs across the lower bailey. Gold cloaks patrolled in pairs, their murmur lost to cricket song. He claims a second horn. Lyanna lifted one shoulder. Then we break a second horn. Even now, months after Stepstones, the blue horn recovered from Euron's flagship. Broken, pulsing with a chill power like trapped winter, lay sealed within the deepest vault of the Red Keep, guarded by layers of hammered steel and words whispered over by Marwyn's glass candle. Twice already the horn had thrummed at dawn, vibrating stones so subtly that ravens shuddered on their perches. Rhaegar had ordered additional sigils carved into the vault door, but he felt the horn even through dreams. A cold tooth gnawing at the root of the realm. He tucked the scroll inside his doublet and kissed Lyanna's knuckles. Tomorrow we convene council. For tonight, he drew her closer. I would rather count your breaths than his threats. Winterfell. Morning broke, with a sky streaked in pale banners of rose and gold. Council met in the Tower of the Hand, because Rhaegar refused the stuffy scarlet chamber where his father had ruled by fear. Instead, sunlight speared through an open oculus, scattering motes that drifted like powdered amber over polished oak tables. At the center of those tables lay a map of the narrow sea and the wind-swept spatter of islands girdling Essos' ragged western shore. Stannis stood beside the map, gauntleted fist tapping gullet straight. Our scouts confirm Euron's remaining fleet hides here in a crescent of shoals. Fewer than 20 longships, but each heavier now, armored along the prow with black iron. And somewhere in his hold he keeps another horn, or shards of one, enough to rattle Alix again. Merci. Tywin Lannister lounged opposite, the barest curve of lip signaling disdain. We have already broken his teeth once. A second time risks making him a martyr. He lifted a crimson latticed goblet, turning wine until dull light shimmered through. Best starve him of attention. Pretend he is nothing. Robert Baratheon barked a laugh so sudden that a steward dropped a platter of date pastries. Starve an Ironborn? Have you met one? Leave him rotting on some shoal. He'll gnaw through gulls and clap together a new fleet from driftwood. Robert jabbed a thumb toward Stannis. We scupper what remains, sink it inside of Pike, then drag his horn behind a warship till even the Merlings choke on it. Jon Arryn cleared his throat. If we press too hard, we risk driving the Kraken into some alliance with Blackfire stragglers. Daemon VI may be dead, but his captains are still at large in Volantis. They hunger for any banner still flapping. Rhaegar listened, gaze flicking between lords. Sever his alliances before we sever his hulls, he said at last. Tywin, you will open correspondence with the Iron Bank. Offer terms, interest forgiveness for every Ironborn captain who surrenders to our ports. Stannis, you will ready the fleet but hold 1 league offshore until we gauge Pike's reaction. He turned to Robert, smiled thinly. And you, my friend, will travel to the Arbor. See what sort of vintage the Red Wine fleet would accept in exchange for sending hawk-eyed cogs to shadow Euron's every wake. Robert's brows shot up. He looked almost betrayed. You'd have me wine tasting while the Kraken slithers? Precisely. Lyanna murmured from her corner seat. No one decants courage better than you. The big man's indignation faltered, replaced by a crooked grin. Hey, I can drink his courage dry before he knows I'm at sea. A shuffle of parchment, the scrape of chairs. Council concluded. Rhaegar. That evening, Tyrion Lannister found himself descending stairs so ancient, he felt they might predate even King Maegor's cruelty. The air grew cooler, damper, smelling of salt and something else, ozone perhaps, or lightning caged in basalt. He carried a lantern and a satchel of tools. Small brushes, loop lens, a slender spike of dragon glass. Only 3 people held keys to this vault, Rhaegar, Marwyn, and Tyrion. And Tyrion suspected one of those 2 had no patience for lamp-suited fingers. At the vault door he pressed an iron ring against the carved wards, interlocked runes that shimmered faint, reacting to the dragon glass. A chime sang, the locking bars clanged, and the door sighed ajar. Inside, the broken horn rested upon a plinth of white marble. A contrast so stark it seemed deliberate, corruption displayed upon purity. The horn's jagged edge leaked a vapor like breath on winter mornings. Tyrion set the lantern down and began sketching runoff patterns where frost feathered the marble. He traced glyphs with a jeweler's loop, muttering Valyrian syllables. His quill kept pace, capturing. A soft voice floated behind him. You risk frostbite of the soul, dwarf. It was Varys, gliding in robes scented faintly of lavender. Even shattered, that artifact whispers. Tyrion blew a curl of hair from his eyes. Artifacts whisper, eunuch, because people listen. I prefer to eavesdrop, not obey. He winked and resumed copying. Though he could feel Varys' gaze like a spider across web. Any urgent secret scurrying through your little birds. 1, Bowen. Varys stepped nearer, but not too near, and produced a folded scrap inked with circles of rating. This came from Korth 4 nights past. A merchant prince writes, "The White Lotus Council is risen again. They seek twin horns to call. Fire's ghost. They believe a beast might answer darker than even Valyria birthed." Tyrion halted. Fire's ghost? A creature of storm and shadow. Legends say it feeds upon living flame. Lovely. Tup. Tyrion tucked the scrap into his doublet. "I shall sleep well." "Sleep little," Varys advised, "and well will follow." Wee. Days turned to a restless week. The Red Keep thrummed with comings and goings. Dornish emissaries collecting compensation for wildfire victims. Maesters from Old Town inspecting dragon pit welfare. Smiths replacing iron portcullis teeth, gnawed blunt by frostfire inadvertently unleashed by Alix during a midday yawn. Soldiers were everywhere, sharpening spears whose heads glimmered black, not steel but dragon glass. Amid the bustle, Jon toddled through halls trailed by Ghost and a pair of nervous septas. The boy wove between servants, tiny arms outstretched, starburst scar shining faint as ever. One bright afternoon he disappeared, found hours later at the foot of the throne dais. He stood, unafraid, tapping the marble with a wooden sword while Ghost lay watchful. Guards hurried to retrieve him. They found him cooing to the iron blades above, as if speaking to ghosts frozen in steel. Lyanna, alerted, arrived breathless, snatched him up. As she carried the child away, she felt the gaze of the throne, unseen yet palpable. It seemed, in that silent moment, to breathe its own cold breath upon her neck. She shivered despite sunlight spilling through stained glass. That night she dreamt of Salian again. In the dream, she stood upon a great frozen lake, whose surface mirrored constellations. Salian rose from the ice, crownless, eyes dark voids. He pointed to a wound in the sky, a rent through which bled a pale comet. "When sky bleeds frostfire," he intoned, "balance buckles." Then he cast something into Lyanna's hand. A silver scale shaped like teardrop, half warm, half cool. She woke with that phantom weight pressing her palm. Wow. Far to the west, on the Iron Islands, a black storm gathered. Balon Greyjoy despised storms. East winds always smashed his warbs. But he despised weakness more, and at dawn he convened a moot upon the wet rocks beneath Naga's ribs. Captains assembled. Arters hammered drums, gulls wheeled. Balon raised his arms and bellowed across surf. Dog King in King's Landing would chain the sea. "Will we bark or bite?" Some cheered, but many eyes slid toward Euron, who lounged upon stone as though it were a cushioned throne. Euron rose last. He wore feathers woven into braids and a cloak stitched with rippled leather flaying. In his hands he held a new horn, smaller, carved from translucent white. He blew. A note lower than graves moaned across breakers. Men clapped hands to ears, some crying out. When the note ended, foam churned unnatural black around Euron's feet, and small silver fish floated dead upon the tide. "I say," Euron called, voice soft but carrying, "we ride storm and sky both." Victarion spat. Yara Greyjoy, recently returned, fingered axe. "Tricks," she hissed. "Win nothing without oars." Yet unease spread. That evening Euron sailed alone beneath full moon to a seamount where basalt columns rose like a shattered harp. There he cut his palm, bled into tide pools, and whispered strange prayers to drowned gods and sky serpents. The horn pulsed faint blue, wind chilled though moon hung in cloudless sky. When southeast, in the Jade Sea, the ragged prince nursed broken armies. Blackfire survivors had limped here, and the prince promised coin if they would attempt final raid, plunder Korth's vaults to buy siege engines. The Sellswords grumbled. They had not signed on for dry deserts and pot-bellied trade lords, but agreed 8 misgivings. From Korth's painted gates, a masked courier departed under moonless sky, bound across seas with message. White Lotus convenes at night water. The courier died en route, throat slit by cloaked sailor. His satchel found by a spice trader, who sold it to a Lyseni hag, who sold it to a Taroshi spy, who sold it to Aerys for 1 ruby the size of a thumbnail. By the time the parchment reached Rhaegar, it looked like old skin, and smelled of turmeric. But words remained. Nightwater, an oasis lake at inner desert of Ashai by the shadow. A place where red priests swore stars went to die. Marwyn pored over maps. White Lotus? They were minor sect after doom. A culture of alchemy and prophecy. He told Rhaegar late one night, glass candle quavering between them. Their writings fixate on merging antithetical forces. Heat so cold it burns black, cold so hot it freezes white. The horns? They aim to open some breach. He tapped long bone-white finger upon scroll. Fire's ghost indeed. Rhaegar folded arms. Can they succeed? Marwyn's pupils flared green in candlelight. If they find proper resonance, yes. They might summon a dragon's opposite, a creature of null flame. Frostfire is edge of that spectrum. Go further. He shuddered like a man who'd glimpsed the void between stars. Rhaegar drummed fingers on chair rail. Then we bar the door. He dispatched ravens. One to Quaithe of the Shadow, cryptic priestess said to read comets. One to archmaesters of Old Town. One to Doran Martell, whose spies across Summer Sea were unmatched. He also summoned Ashara Dane, now commander of Fellowship Scouts. She arrived cloaked in midnight, violet eyes keen. He tasked her. Seek route to Ashai, learn White Lotus plans, return before the next new moon. Lyanna confronted him after. You send friends into darkness and keep me caged, she accused, though she held Jon in one arm and knew the answer. Rhaegar apologized with quiet words, promised to train her with bow again, as they once did. She smiled, but the smile did not reach her eyes entirely. And Raoul? As months advanced, summer's heat smothered Westeros. Cisterns shrank, harvest fretted. Yet along the Blackwater, green terraces thrived, where Rhaegar diverted aqueducts built by Valyrians centuries earlier. Commoners blessed his name, though Highborn muttered about king of ditches. He ignored them. In the dragon pit, Alix grew restive. He flew daily, circling capital thrice, diving, scattering gulls. Each return he landed heavier. Garrus measured wingspan, near 30 feet tip to tip. Frostfire breath now carved white scars into rock. One afternoon, he banked north instead, following intangible thread toward the Vale. Falcons screeched in alarm as he passed. Snow fell from clear sky in his wake. Rhaegar and Lyanna rode after upon Stormrunner, a swift dapple mare. They found Alix perched atop a crag over High Heart, wings mantled. He stared west, pupils thin slits. Lyanna asked quietly, "What calls you?" The dragon only rasped, a note hauntingly similar to horn. When Rhaegar sang, Alix eventually returned, though his flight felt heavy with reluctance. Back at court, Tyrell envoys pressed again for debt relief. Olenna pulled no petals off words. A dragon and a wolf wage lofty wars, but someone must pay millers. She proposed marriage between her granddaughter Loresa and Prince Jon, only 2 years his elder. Rhaegar laughed gently. No scorn, merely sympathy, and declined. Olenna's answer was a smile sharp as pruning shears. Then perhaps the Reach will grow other gardens, she said. News then reached capital. Old Town's harbor blocked by fleet, flying kraken banners. Euron Greyjoy had sailed around Cape Wrath unseen, anchored under the Hightower's shadow. He did not sack. He simply rang his white horn until lamplighters at the top of the Hightower reported books bursting into frost. Citadel archives iced shut. Maesters fled. When Hightower's lord signaled for parley, Euron demanded one thing: send the king's dragon or send ashes of every book you cherish. The threat was both metaphor and monstrous reality. Tywin pounced. You see? He manipulates your restraint as weakness. Robert wanted to ride immediately. Hammer hearts. Stannis counseled caution. Shoals there tricky, Euron could vanish. Marwyn feared for Citadel knowledge. Rhaegar brooded. Over supper Lyanna spoke, voice a soft slash. He wants Alix. Deny him, he may kill innocents. Yield, and he enslaves dragon, threatens greater innocence later. She sipped wine. So we give him what he asks, just not how he expects. 2 nights later, Fellowship's finest boarded sleek Drummond Nightingale. Arthur Dane, Brienne, Maya Stone, and Marwyn sailed with a large wooden crate masquerading as dragon egg. Inside nested the broken blue horn, disguised beneath lead-lined walls to mask its cold pulse. Idea: offer egg in exchange for Old Town's release. While Euron gloated, covert crew would sabotage Silence, capture Horn, and seize Euron himself. Rhaegar, meanwhile, led Second Fleet south of Arbor, ready to spring trap. Night voyage under starless sky tested nerve. Off Old Town's coast, dim lights of Silence hovered like malice adrift. Nightingale approached under white flag. Euron himself rode out, hair slick midnight, eye patch gone, revealing socket filled by polished black gem. He laughed when he saw crate. An egg for the crow, he crooned. Let's hatch doom together. Arthur Dane presented box. Euron's men hauled aboard Silence. Brienne slipped onto Silence's guard, hidden dagger of dragonglass at belt. But plan faltered instantly. As crate touched deck, horn fragments inside pulsed, a shriek pealing across waves. Above Dragonstone, miles away, Alix roused in pit, roared and launched into night. On Silence, Euron threw back head, howl ecstatic. The dragon comes. I need no egg, only song. He smashed crate open. Splinters exposed lead interior. His grin faltered, but not long. He yanked shards free, pressed them to new white horn. Frostlight stitched edges, fusing horn whole again. Arthur drew dawn. Chaos erupted. Brienne slashed rigging. Sails collapsed. Marwyn hurled vials of wildfire across deck, green flame chasing screaming Ironborn. But Euron sounded horn. 3 awful tones. Far above, Alix dove toward sound. In the sky east, Rhaegar stood on flagship prow, seeing dragon streak like comet. He ordered trumpets. Fleet advanced. Yet they might not reach in time. Rhaegar closed eyes, began to sing. Valyrian crescendos layered with old tongue he had learned from Lyanna. Harp strings thrummed as sailors parted for him. The sound carried over waves. Alix shuddered mid-air, torn between calls. Jon, asleep in Red Keep, began to wail. His scarf flared bright, shining through shutters like candle glow. Lyanna rushed in, scooped child, began humming northern lullaby. The lullaby wove into Rhaegar's distant song, 2 threads twisting into rope. On Silence, Horn's 3rd note died ragged. Euron staggered. Marwyn had thrust dragonglass spike through his left hand, pinning Horn to mast. Euron shrieked, wrenched free, blood spraying black in moonlight. Arthur dueled him. Dawn clanged against axe studs. Brienne grappled steersman, wheels spun. Ships collided. Stannis galleys smashing Silence amidships. Sheer confusion as Ironborn tumbled. The horn slipped, rolling toward Scupper. Maya Stone leapt, seized, lobbed into sea, where iron net waited to haul several fathoms deep into lead chest. Euron, bleeding, blew anyway. Empty air stuttered but no sound. Alix swooped, frostfire blasting rigging. Silence burst in glitter of ice. Rhaegar's fleet arrived, scorpions firing grapples. Ironborn broke. Brienne dragged Euron, bound him with chain of black steel. His laugh was ragged, teeth stained blue by horn blood. You cannot cage storms, he rasped. She knocked him cold. Old Town bells pealed victory. Citadel thawed. Within weeks, Euron was carried to Red Keep's dark cell. He taunted guards, whispered of shadows with golden eyes. Tyrion visited, asked why pursue horns. Euron smiled with cracked lips. Not horns I sought, resonance. But your dragon is flaw of light. Wait till true dark fire comes. Tyrion left unsettled. Horn relocated to Mountain of Dragonstone. Layers of lead and runes entombed it beneath molten slag poured into chamber. Marwyn insisted inscriptions. Here lies the false call, bound till time unravels. King's Landing roared festival to honor Old Town rescue. Tyrell's forced to toast dragon they'd opposed. Olenna clinked goblet with Lyanna, muttering, "Next time." "I poisoned the thing's goat, not the cup." Lyanna laughed. Rhaegar met Tywin privately, offered Lannisport charter for free trade with Old Town. Bridging pride, Tywin accepted, though his eyes still weighed every kindness like gold dust on scale. Battle over, but Ashara Dane had not returned. A raven delivered only a broken blade of shining black glass and a scrap. Night waters stirs, lotus blooms blood. Rhaegar clenched note. New moon neared. He summoned fellowship, drafted vow. They would sail past Valyria, smoking ruin, journey to Asshai, confront cult. Lyanna begged to join. Rhaegar refused, needing her to rule should he fall. She kissed him fierce, placed silver direwolf pendant around his neck. "Bring dawn," she said. Fleet readied. Alix canted wings over harbor, now bigger than any ship's mast. Rhaegar mounted dragon for first time. Saddle of hide strapped by Dunstan leatherworkers. Dragon accepted weight. Jon on wall clapped tiny hands. As fleet set sail, Tywin watched from rampart, thinking of lawful succession, of queens and coins. Robert raised barrel in farewell. Ned silently prayed. Lyanna held Jon tight, feeling scale of teardrop still phantom in palm, half warm, half cold. Above, Comet Scar the child bore pulsed once, a heartbeat woven with dragon cry. And far in desert of Asshai, beneath sky bruised violet, a pool called Nightwater lay motionless. Around its rim, bright white lotus blossoms opened, each bleeding dark ichor into water so black it reflected no moon, only void. Hooded figures stood in silent circle, horns of bone across arms. In the center on stone, Daes knelt Ashara Dane, wrists bound, yet eyes defiant. The tallest figure lifted curved, dagger fashioned of mirror dark metal, and began to chant. "When the dragon of Frostfire meets the ghost of flame, the world's great cleave will open." The lotus petals drifted from stems, spinning atop water like pale stars in abyss, and the chant rose until it seemed to be the very wind. Asshai. The fleet left the sheltering cliffs of Dragonstone in darkness, its lanterns hooded, and its banners stowed, so that only the sigh of hulls and the slap of sails betrayed its passage. 20 dromons fanned in a chevron, black wood sheened with pitch, each bearing the trim of different houses yet painted over in a common gray, the color of moonlit sea, chosen by Rhaegar so that no crewman would mistake the voyage for conquest. They were followed by 3 slower carracks, loaded deep with grain, fresh water, and barrels of dragonglass arrowheads, whose midnight edges drank every hint of starlight. And above all of it, unseen but not unfelt, the dragon Alix prowled, wings silent, save for an occasional thunderous beat that rippled the tops of waves like the wake of an invisible leviathan. Rhaegar rode the wind alongside his mount, whenever Alix dipped low enough to taste the salt spray. Balanced upon a saddle of silver-laced leather, stitched by the master saddler of Lannisport. Each time the dragon banked, he felt the quivering surge of muscles, the size of small trees, and smelled a curious mingling of hearth smoke, warmth, and crisp winter air. He had been told by Garrus that Frostfire left no ash, yet he could still taste cinders at the back of his throat, as if some ancient engine inside the beast brewed opposing elements and vented them through unseen chimneys in its bones. The voyage's first dawn found the fleet already well beyond the stepstones. To the east, the sky glowed a bruised purple. Behind, the horizon wore the first faint flushes of pink. On the Nightingale, flagship for the Fellowship cadre, Arthur Dane greeted the day clad in simple wool, dawn sheathed in white scabbard at his hip. Beside him Brienne of Tarth sparred with a pair of Dornish spearmen, her shield a blur of blue and gold. Nearby, Tyrion Lannister leaned over a rail, scribbling frantic notes about the constellations, while Maester Marwyn muttered into a glass candle whose flame guttered green against the morning wind. "You'll scorch your eyebrows off," Tyrion remarked without looking up. Marwyn did not blink. Better singe a little hair than allow ignorance full flame. He held the candle at shoulder height, The glass's serpentine ridges cast rippling shadows across the deck. "Northwest by west," he said. Even in daylight, the thing whispers. The lotus stirs. Arthur approached. "What do you see in that flame, Archmaester?" Marwyn's eyes did not leave the candle's dancing tongue. Shapes, circles within circles, a stone flower blooming black, and a sword I very much wish were not broken. He meant Lightbringer. At least, so Tyrion guessed. The Archmaester had become increasingly cryptic. Since their departure, his sentences nodded with fragments of half-forgotten tongues. When pressed, he muttered about resonance and parity, echoing theories Tyrion had once read in yellowed pages, detesting such abstraction. "Any sign of Ashara?" Arthur asked, softer now. "None," Marwyn said. "But the flame also shows her alive, bound, but unbroken." Arthur exhaled and moved to the bow, where the sea unrolled like a mercurial floor, slate-colored and flecked with pale foam. He folded gloved hands over the rail and silently recited a prayer he had learned from a Sarnori sellsword in his youth. "May the day's edge be blunt and the night's edge keen." The meaning was long lost, but the cadence soothed. 3 days later, the fleet passed the smoking sea. Many sailors crossed themselves in the latest fashion, palm laid flat, fingers together to mimic the 7 points of the faith, and spat for luck. Even hardened mariners whispered that the waters above drowned Valyria accepted no tribute but blood and madness. Here, islands rose wreathed in steam, some no larger than a market square, others bearing jagged spires of glassy black stone. Sulfur clogged every breath. Waves hissed where they licked volcanic shore. Rhaegar ordered the slow carracks to form a protective box around them as they threaded narrow channels. On every vessel, men kept buckets of seawater ready in case some phantom spark leapt from fissures below. Alix flew high, wings flaring each time he caught an updraft of rank, heated air. His frostfire seemed to retreat inside him, color dimming to bluish embers where his throat glands pulsed. Lyanna stood at the Nightingale's stern with Jon perched against her shoulder. She wrapped a damp cloth over the child's nose, whispering the girthy Jory Castle nursery rhyme about alder trees and snow in summer. Ghost lay stretched at her feet, white fur prickling with static from the radiant heat. When a gout of steam burst only 100 yards off the starboard beam, several sailors cried out. Jon giggled and reached tiny fists toward the pillar as though asking the sky for a toy. Marwyn hurried aft, eyes watering. "The seams of the world grow thin here," he warned. "Stay by the rail if the air grows chalky. Some vapors congeal in the lungs like melted glass." "Then this time." Tyrion bundled his parchment scrolls under arm and joined them. He addressed Jon with exaggerated sternness. "Young prince, if you plan to inhale volcanic fumes, please do so after I've finished documenting them. Else history will lack proper context." Jon squealed and pulled at Tyrion's nose. Lyanna smiled despite the oppression. "We'll breathe easier once we reach the Jade Straits." "If we reach them," Marwyn muttered. Ahead, the Droman seizing drifted too near a spur of fresh rock. Deckhands shouted, oars bit water, and the hull scraped but held. Brienne barked commands along the line to widen formation. Far overhead, Alix banked, dropping altitude. He released a thin jet of frostfire upon one smoking vent, sealing it in a sheath of shimmering ice. Steam died abruptly. Sailors cheered until their voices echoed off blistered cliffs. Night fell. Stars hid behind drifting ash. Marwyn convened a small council on the Nightingale's quarterdeck. Rhaegar, Arthur, Brienne, Tyrion, Maya, and a pair of maesters whose names mattered less than the piles of charcoal sketches and wind diagrams they clutched. "We must decide at dawn," Marwyn said, flattening a parchment showing the 5 forts of Et. "The direct route takes us east-northeast across the Basilisk Straits, cutting above Neath. Quicker by 10 days. But Korth's scroll claims Lotus acolytes have remnant fleets near the southern coast of Valyrian Peninsula. If we skirt them..." Rhaegar pinched the bridge of his nose. Fatigue etched fine cracks around violet eyes. "We cannot risk a chase so near the cleaver. If they sight Alix..." Tyrion interrupted. "They will vanish." Have you fought pirates in the stepstones? The moment they see crimson wings, they dissolve like morning mist. No. The greatest threat is the wrong song reaching the dragon's ear. He placed a finger on a stylized whirlpool south of Valyria. Here is Gorgossos. Legends say Lotus cultists once thrived on those plague islands. We sail wide, pass beyond hearing, then cut north of Sithorios. It costs us a fortnight, but we keep secrecy. Now, Arthur frowned. A fortnight Ashara may not have. Brienne tapped Dawn's pommel. She will survive. Sir Barristan once told me she was water in the hand. Soft until one tries to crush her. Rhaegar let the voices wash over him. Gaze drifting to the silent silhouette of Alix roosting on the mainmast. High clouds drifted behind like slow ships. He imagined the dragons hearing, a world cottoned with distant heartbeats. Hull creaks, waves drumming keels. Somewhere beyond, horns moldered in buried crypts. Somewhere in Ashai, a circle of lotus-gowned conspirators whispered mantras to eclipse. He closed his eyes, listening inwardly for theirs. When he opened them, he spoke. We take Tyrion's route, but at Hidden Harbor we leave the Carracks and one Drummond. Then we strike east in the fastest 9. I will ride Alix ahead with a small spear wing of the Fellowship. The rest follow under Arthur. He raised hand before objections erupted. The glass candle says Ashara is alive. That is a thread. We will not let it break. Then, Hidden Harbor was misnamed, for nothing about it was subtle. A half-submerged shelf of basalt, shaped like the jaw of a behemoth. Its teeth coated in guano so white they seemed to glow. Mists lingered between crags even at midday. No watchfires burned. Only the fetid stench of rotting kelp announced land. Here the fleet resupplied water from a freshwater spring that trickled down a canyon, and here Rhaegar selected those who would accompany him. Brienne insisted on joining Spearwing. So too did Maya Stone and Corin Halfhand, plus 6 of the best Dornish sand skirmishers Oberyn had loaned. Tyrion requested a berth on the Cormorant, citing a sudden scholarly interest in Yi Tish maritime law and the local green pearls rumored to ward bad humors. Rhaegar forbade it, pointedly suggesting the dwarf's quill might yet reroute entire wars from the safety of a desk. Tyrion never did decide whether it was insult or compliment. Lyanna kissed Rhaegar beneath the cormorant's figurehead, a weather-beaten bird with wings outspread in perpetual dive. She traced his cheek. "Ride high," she whispered, "and if you see Comnet's bleeding frostfire, sing louder than they." Jon reached tiny fingers toward his father's cloak pin, tugging. Rhaegar bent, knelt level with his son. "I'll return before you outgrow Ghost's saddle." Jon laughed, a bright bubble of sound swallowed quickly by surf. Ghost watched, ears flattened. Dairy Wolf's despised departure. Alix launched from the beach at twilight. Scenarists among the sailors scribbled the silhouette, a crimson comet slicing toward the sunless east, a rider silver-crowned against swelling dusk. Brienne and the Spearwing boarded 3 swift galley cutters, Minnow, Grey Gull, and Farflight. Oared by tireless Free City's rowers, they could sprint when wind died. Arthur's main squadron raised anchor last, the Nightingale turning south toward the summer sea. For days, Rhaegar's smaller band traversed emptiness. Alix scouted leagues ahead, wings glimmering each dawn like a smear of sunrise. The sea spread glassy one hour, heaved in white caps the next. Flying fish flitted. Worms the length of a skiff thrashed in distant rollers, scales glinting bronze. Dornish archers coughed fearful prayers. On the 12th dusk, Corin sighted fires on the western horizon, flickering green. They changed course, rowing under half-furled sails. The flames proved to be a wreck. 2 caravel hulls fused in pyromantic blaze, masts molten into drooping antlers. No corpses floated, but on one keel, burned words still read, "The Ghost awakes." Brienne touched the charcoal letters with gauntlet. "White lotus," she murmured. Maya Stone found scrap of lotus petal pressed between deckboards, crisp to ash yet showing veins like blackened lace. She flung it into the sea. It hissed, leaving rainbow film. That night, Rhaegar dreamed. He walked a bridge of glass over an abyss of coals where faces rose in the smoke. Aerys, Robert, Tywin, Oberyn, Ashara. Each opened mouths from which spilled not words, but identical horns. All notes bent into a single keening that cracked the bridge. He glimpsed Lyanna clutching Jon on the far side, a door shaped like a lotus behind her, edges dripping shadow. He ran, but feet shattered glass. As he fell, he saw Alix wheeling below, eaten mid-wing by something vast and translucent, as if frost made flesh had unzipped the dragon's heat. The horn's note grew loud enough to peel skin, and he awoke gasping. Alix was circling low above the decks. Rhaegar climbed rigging to join him. A rope ladder swung from a custom harness, allowing him to mount mid-air. On dragonback, breeze slapped dream sweat from his face. He stroked Alix's neck ridges, murmured a lullaby. The dragon's mismatched eyes peered into night, as though seeking distant beacons. Rhaegar followed the gaze, and saw a speck of pale light horizonward, too steady for starlight. He banked Alix and Dove for the squadron. Brienne hailed as they landed on the Minnow's foredeck. Rhaegar pointed east. A ship with no mast, perhaps a night lantern. We investigate now. Maya pressed flint to lantern hood. Corran armed the ballista tat. They tilted oars for silent progress. Within an hour, the light resolved into floating brazier upon a hulk of pitted iron. No sails, no crew. A dead vessel drifting. Brienne leapt aboard first, dawn gleaming. Sand skirmishers followed. Nothing stirred but ropes that dangled into brine. The hull's deck sagged underfoot, tarry with dried resin. Amidships loomed a stone pedestal carved as lotus petals, open like a blooming mouth. Inside it lay Ashara Dane's moon-white cloak, neatly folded, a bloodless hand upon it severed at the wrist. Fingers curled around a lotus seed pod turned obsidian. Rhaegar's breath stalled. Brienne lowered head. Corran cursed softly. Yet there was no corpse. Tucked beneath the cloak, a strip of parchment read, "Night water flows upriver now. Follow the petals. Or find petals in your crown." Maya hissed. Taunt. They want us lost in labyrinth. Rhaegar's fury curdled cold. He ordered the hand wrapped. Pedestal smashed. The skirmishers sprinkled dragonglass dust along cracks. The pedestal wept green fumes, dissipating. At dawn they burned the hulk, frostfire cleansing any residue. Ash hung unholy silver on waves. The jade straits narrowed until forested cliffs hemmed both sides like jaws. Ancient stone watchtowers crumbled overhead. Monkeys shrieked, birds with scaled necks flitted. Stink of orchids and decayed leaves thickened. They were near Yiti, whose gilded cities seldom welcomed Westerosi sails. But the Fellowship's banners remained hidden. Local watercraft kept distance, though occasionally a lone satchel washed near Hull. Gifts of oranges, lacquered fans adorned with lotus blooms. Corran burned them all. One dusk, green gold lanterns flickered along southern shore. A caravan inching through swamp. Brienne used spyglass. Figures in gray lotus robes, carrying bone horns big as wolfhounds. They marched toward interior. Rhaegar commanded Alix down. The dragon swept low, frostfire scalding treetop moss yet sparing trunks. The cultists scattered. Horns abandoned. Sand skirmishers retrieved one, lighter than expected, etched with Valyrian sigils entwined by Yitish ideograms of moon-eating sun. The mouthpiece glistened wet, though untouched by mouth. Marwyn studied it. "Composite," he whispered. "Sea dragon bone fused with God's horn ash." Resonance device tuned for something other than fire or frost. They smashed it to splinters, dragged each piece across dragonglass dust until sparks leapt unnatural turquoise. Wood squealed like something alive. Only then did they cast fragments into sea. Ahead, the strait bent south. Beyond lay wide lagoon, whose waters shimmered black and glassy, even under noonday glare. Islands of bleached stone jutted at odd angles, some shaped like vertebrae of titanic serpents, others like lotus petals curling inward to cup emptiness. At the center, A rectangular bight out of shoreline formed a harbor where black barges bobbed, unmoored. Marwyn stood at prow, pulse visible in neck. "Night water," he said. "The pool where light goes to drown." An hour's row brought them to the harbor mouth. Water stank of copper. No gull cried. Instead, whispering wind carried the faint chimes of horns deeper inland. Not blown, but struck, producing steady heartbeat rhythm that tugged at the skull. Alix backwinged and refused to enter airspace above lagoon. He landed on Stone Islet and paced. Rhaegar ordered the Fellowship disembark on Eastern Spit. They advanced in columns of 3, past pillars carved with leering lotus masks, each the height of a man. Luminous fungi lit pathways. Every third step stirred faint blue motes rising from cracks, spores that tickled nostrils like pepper. Sand skirmishers tied cloth over mouths. Brienne crushed motes under heel. Further in, the jungle gave way to crater whose basin held mirror-still water. Lotus blossoms floated, pristine white, but each dripping black ichor into pool. Around rim, acolytes knelt chanting, voices weaving eerie harmony. At top central dais knelt Ashara, wrists bound behind a stone bud. Her violet eyes flashed across torchlit gloom, meeting Rhaegar's the instant he breached tree line. Time kinked. Events tumbled like dice. Brienne led a silent charge left. Maya vaulted right. Corrin shot first arrow. Dragonglass bolt piercing cultists. Hood. Chant shattered. Horns clanged disharmoniously. Lotus petals curled inward, blackening. But at that moment Salient Stark appeared on far ridge. Ice-armored specter illuminated by moonsliver. He raised Frostblade toward water. From the pool a shape surfaced. Translucent wings, skeletal, wrought in shimmering night dark ice. It resembled dragon but inverted, flame-shaped void. Water turned to shards around it, rising in spirals. The cultists cheered one heartbeat, then bowed, faces pressed to mud. Ashara forced herself upright, biting rope to shred fibers. Blood trickled from gums. She screamed, single note, before horn blasts drowned it. 3 horns around basin, their joint call a dreadful chord that cracked lotus stems. The void dragon flapped once, freezing air. Hoarfrost raced across ground, brushing Fellowship boots. Alix responded before any command. His roar echoed down cliffs as he lunged overhead. Frostfire streaming. The torrent met the void dragon's exhale, jet of inky black-white flame, and the 2 fires collided, spinning cobalt typhoon. Trees exploded to crystalline splinters. Cultists closest to clash froze, then shattered. Rhaegar sprinted across rim, dawn's pale light glinting off his borrowed sword. Ashara's star-metalled blade recovered from wreck. He leapt dais, severed Ashara's bonds. She staggered, but seized fallen spear. Together, they cut path through retreating acolytes beneath swirling duel of elemental breaths above. Brienne slammed shield into Hornbearer, crushing larynx. Maya raked twin daggers, dropping 2 more. Corrin glided ghost-like among roots, slicing throats. Yet acolytes seemed endless, faces blank behind lotus masks that split at hinge like petals, revealing nothing inside. Hollows where bone and flesh belonged, only black dust. The void dragon shrieked, wings gathering gloom. Alix grappled, jaws on neck. Frostfire licked, but ice shrugged, sintering into glass. Rhaegar mounted dais pedestal. Harp in hand, though he'd not realized drawing it. Fingers found strings. He played the ancient hymn first taught by Lyanna beneath Winterfell's godswood. Chords balanced between summer sun and winter wind. The sound bounced ring to ring of crater, weaving through petals. Salient raised blade again, but paused, head tilting toward music. Ashara joined, singing low in summer tongue of Rhoynar river songs. Water flowing around, not against. Maya added whistle. The chords braided, golden and silver, meeting above where dragons clashed. Alix's frostfire brightened, edges no longer chilled blue but pure white. Where breath met void flame, music folded energy into lattice, colors neutralized, leaving shower of clear crystals that fell like gentle snow. The void dragon reeled, wings stuttering. Salient lowered sword, stepped back into moonlight, features softening. He plunged frost blade into earth. Ice blossomed outward, locking pool. Petals froze mid-drip. Cultists dropped horns, screaming now with voices newly reclaimed. Masks shattered, revealing faces of ordinary folk stolen from ports. Sailors, farmers, all eyes glazed by lotus dust. They collapsed, freed. But one figure remained, tallest hooded leader, dagger of mirror dark metal poised above lotus altar. With a cry he sliced his own palm and poured blood onto ice. The void dragon, though waning, lunged to resuck energy. Salian roared, a sound like avalanche, charged across basin, frost crust supporting feet. He cleaved leader in half, blade passing clean. Black steam vented. The void dragon keened, form unraveling like cloth pulled through ring, until only glimmer of frostfire flickered above water. Alix hovered, breathing ragged. He circled once, then landed at crater rim. Rhaegar approached, harp slack in hand. The dragon's eyes, mismatched, fixed on him with new depth, as if threshold crossed. He stroked muzzle, scales warm beneath frost. Salian approached dais. Frost armor melted, revealing gaunt figure of pale brown hair tinged silver at ends. Blue fire eyes no longer feral. He knelt before Ashara, voice echoing in first tongue and then common. Song unbroken. Balance breathes. He offered frost blade hilt first to Rhaegar. Rhaegar accepted. Chill flooded bones, but not painful, clarifying. Will host withdraw? He asked softly. Salian nodded. Until sun devours frost or frost devours sun. Your child bears scarf hinge. Guard him. Ashara touched Salian's cheek, gesture of sisterly pity. He bowed again, then strode into pool. Ice parted, swallowed him without ripple. Lotus petals re-widened, stems straightening. Silence lay, broken only by distant moans of freed captives. Stars re-emerged, bright as hammered nails. The journey home was long, but less perilous. Brienne shepherded rescued folk aboard holds cramped, yet safe. Marwyn studied pool water samples, now inert, as well as shards of void-flamed crystals that dissolved into fragrant mist when warmed. Alix bore new scars along neck where ice talons had raked. Garrus salved them with resin of wild dragon pepper. The dragon bore them stoically, curling tail around mast when at rest. Ashara spent hours atop forecastle, staring west where horizon bled crimson each dusk. Arthur sometimes joined. They spoke seldom, sharing quiet like cloak. One evening she said, "I saw lilies beside the pool, but none bloomed until I hoped." Arthur responded only by brushing hair from her brow. Hope remained fragile, but alive. Rhaegar penned letters each dawn, to Lyanna, recounting battles, to Jon, though child could not read, to Tyrion, still back with main fleet, to Queen Rhaella, updating on winds. Every page ended with same vow. Balance, not dominion. A moon's turn brought them to Lannisport, where Arthur's squadron reunited. Tyrion greeted them with a new limerick about krakens who tried to eat dragons but found them too chilled for digestion. Ghost sniffed dragon from pier, and promptly howled, causing Alix to sneeze frost onto warehouses. Icing ale barrels. The city would always remember that harvest as year of the cold cask, when beer served slush thick and potent. When they reached King's Landing, bells tolled not victory, but relief. Lyanna met Rhaegar upon landing stairs. Jon toddled, stumbling into father's greaves. Rhaegar hoisted him aloft. Child's scar glowed faint at awareness of approaching dragon shadow. Yet Alix folded wings respectfully, nose nuzzling Jon's hair. Frostfire did not spark. The dragon's heat, once paradoxical, felt harmonious. Small folk swarmed streets cheering new ballads of Frostfire thwarting Shadow Dragon. Septons, previously distrustful, proclaimed miracle of twin flames balanced by music, a sign 7 approved union of North and Valyria. High Septon himself requested glimpse of Alix. Dragon sniffed, but refrained from freezing crystal floor of Great Sept. Council reconvened. Tywin, hearing of White Lotus defeat, publicly praised fellowship though privately annoyed no lion banner flew in legend. He accepted horn tax. For every rumor of captive horn, the West would fund expedition to destroy it. Yet quietly diverted funds to upgrade Lannisport walls against unknown aerial threat. Robert returned from Arbor, flushed with vintages and newly forged alliance. Red wine fleet hovering as friend at first sight of false horn. Stannis reported Euron delivered to Storm's End dungeon. The Kraken refused food, whispering to salt water cups, but horns pulsed no longer. Victarion pledged fealty in exchange for salvage rights. Yara sailed north to keep him honest. Old Town reopened citadel stacks. Maesters studied frostfire crystals, some feared them, others thrilled. Archmaester Peristan wrote treatise on the synthesis of opposition, quoting Rhaegar's harp in footnotes. Marwyn sealed crystals inside lead reliquary, burying beneath citadel with dragonglass runes. Winter eased. Jon learned to ride atop Ghost, Alix pacing overhead like a patient tutor. Lyanna expanded Godswood, planting second heart tree sprig carved by Celion's blade, bark pale blue tinged red along grain. Northern visitors claimed they dreamed clearer there. Yet rumors persist. Sailors glimpsed pale wings far north of Skagos, a shadow bigger than Alix. In Korth, white lotus remnant petaled shards of void crystal as love charms. In Ashai, night water pool now dry, cracks weeping warm red liquid. And within Red Keep vault, frosthorn pulses still faint. Some nights Jon wakes crying when moon casts lines across floor, claiming he hears a song without words. Rhaegar sits late those nights, harp across knees, playing lullaby woven from notes of dusk and dawn. Lyanna hums harmony. Alix roosts upon tower spire, tail curled. City below, once a tinderbox of fear, drifts into uneasy dreaming, balancing on edge of new era. Some nights Rhaegar wonders if balance can endure, if frost and fire, wolf and dragon, song and silence can continue their dance without tearing seams of world. Then Jon toddles in, clutching wooden sword, chattering about building snow castles in summer gardens. And Lyanna laughs, and Alix rumbles gentle thunder, and Rhaegar decides, for one more day hope is heavier than doom. Across the sea, deep below ragged ruins of old Valyria, bubbles rise through black water unseen. A cavern opens like a wound, and in that wound, fist-sized flecks of crystal pulse, echoing rhythm of a horn that no longer sounds, awaiting perhaps another breath, another dream. But for now, they slumber. And above, a city mended by bravery and song inhales dawn. The wind off the black water tastes of approaching autumn, cool, bracing, not yet harsh. It carries scents of new-built granaries and freshly forged bells. Rhaegar steps onto balcony with harp, plucks trial melody. Below, Lyanna guides Jon as he wobbles on hobby horse. Alix circles once then rises, a red comet shedding frost, disappearing into sunrise sharp as a spearhead. And far to the north, in a keep of ice, Celion Stark stands upon windswept rampart, eyes closed to shifting sky, listening to a lullaby carried faint but clear on wind, tune of balance, a promise held in thin silver strings. He smiles, small, fleeting but real, then turns, cloak of hoarfrost billowing, and walks back into shadows carved by dawn.